Chapter 556, Virescent Soul Sea. Chapter 556, Virescent Soul Sea. Shiryen felt that he was forced to divide into two persons. One was his real self, and the other was the hollow soul. His hollow soul did have a vision, intellect, and it could move too. Through the vague teleportation formation in the blacksmith's secrets of success, the hollow soul had gone somewhere, which ached Shiryen's soul consciousness as he suddenly had a hallucination that his soul was split up. In the vision of the hollow soul, Shiryen saw a vast area where space seemed to be cut open by some kinds of sharp weapons with many fine cracks. Those were the space slits. Each space slit led to another strange world or the turbulent void. All of them were mysterious and hard to measure. There was a sea made of floating souls in the foreign land. Those souls fluttered in unconsciousness, as if the nutrition in them was all absorbed. This sea was dark green, and he couldn't see where it ended. At the space slit above the sea, he could vaguely see many dead souls. The dead souls in the strange place looked weak. It seemed they were affected by the chaotic energy inside the space slit. They were struggling to get out of the space. This foreign land didn't have the sun, the moon, or stars. The sky was immensely gray and without clouds. Only the twisted energy flashed and then vanished like the shooting stars. Each dead soul here was trying to get out of the space. In the dark green soul sea, souls were floating around without the fluctuations of life. However, they had generated some kind of power that could urge the space power, which made the space slits shine like sharp sabers. The hollow soul hovered above the Virescent Soul Sea and observed the situation down there. It didn't know what had happened. All of a sudden, from the bottom of the dark green sea, a flow of cold, evil will shot out. It seemed there was some sinister life that was swallowing all the energy of the bobbing souls to wake up. Shiryen's hollow soul was also affected, becoming weaker. However, at this moment, a twisted shooting light beamed out from a space split near there. The hollow soul trembled, but then it was no longer affected. The hollow soul didn't have the sensing ability like its own soul consciousness. It couldn't sense what was happening in the bottom, as it could only observe the situation indifferently. Light flashed in the space slit near the sea. Strange, evil green energy constantly gathered into the sea. When 10 or more dead souls gathered, the energy was drawn and poured into the sea. Shiryen's hollow soul observed everything attentively and quietly. It then saw more hiding dead souls, which were attacking the space slit. The hollow soul observed, then suddenly understood something. It was the dead soul's evil lair. The space slit where the dead souls gathered connected to the Dead Soul mountain range in the Grace mainland. Dead souls guarded the entrance as it was the main canal for the dead souls to travel to the Dead Soul mountain range. This finding scared him, and his face discolored. Shiryen could never think that his hollow soul would be teleported into the dead soul's evil lair inexplicably while studying the mysteries of the teleport formation in the blacksmith's secrets of success, which led to this strange world. In this world, the savage dead souls became the weak ones, struggling in pain. The dead souls were hiding themselves in the space slits, using the power of space distortion to reluctantly get rid of the pulling force from that Virescent sea. Sometimes, he could see 1 or 2 dead souls dragged into the dark green sea when it changed its position, or the twisting force around it disappeared. Once the dead souls were pulled into the green sea, their auras disappeared instantly as their soul powers were snatched away. They became the stupefied dead souls in the quiet atmosphere of death. The dark green sea was trying to swallow all dead souls to strengthen and enlarge itself. Shiryen was frightened. After observing for a while, he found the abnormal situation of this place, in which the dead souls were like lambs about to be slaughtered. This Virescent sea had enslaved them. Flows of gray soul shot out from the evil lair one by one, discharging into the green sea. They were human warrior souls. Another gray soul entered, also the soul of a human warrior. There were 10 of them in total. Once they fell into the dark green sea, those souls then soaked into the atmosphere of death. They went numb without any vitality left in them. Their soul powers then were taken. When human souls were pulled into the place, the suction force of the sea would reduce. Sometimes it released some sort of strange and evil energy, pouring into the dead souls and strengthening them. This situation was bizarre. This Virescent sea would pull and swallow souls, including the dead souls. At the same time, it could release a green energy that could improve the power of the dead souls. Shiryen had watched everything for a while, but he still didn't know the connection between the dead souls and this green sea. He didn't know why the relationship between them was so strange and complicated. It seemed the green sea needed a constant supply of soul energy. If the dead souls gave it enough souls, it would gift them some energy to repay. But when it didn't have enough the soul energy, it would swallow the dead souls to supplement the missing amount. It seemed the sea's existence consumed soul power continually. While his hollow soul was carefully watching the situation there, space slits appeared more as if some kind of sharp weapon had cut the space open. Many beams of shooting light got out of the space slits, darting towards the hollow soul and getting into it. The hollow soul seemed to become a space where flows of space power were crossing through it and disappearing in just a blink. The host's soul in Shiryan's body. The teleportation formation in the blacksmith's secrets of success glistered. Space twisted and changed. Inside the mountain flank, space next to him cracked. A light shot out from there, entering his sea of consciousness. It then started to fuse with his strands of soul consciousness. Changes happened quietly in his sea of consciousness. Strands of soul consciousness were fused with the space power. Now, they could cross the distance in space, running fast in his sea of consciousness. From him as the center, strands of soul consciousness amplified, then expanded to the outside world. It seemed a space crack had just appeared in his sea of consciousness. All of a sudden, his soul consciousness flashed and then disappeared into that crack. He didn't know where it had gone. Some kind of understanding suddenly stormed into his heart. The Dead Soul Mountain Range was a vast area. His soul consciousness glided through the region, searching every corner of the mountain range. A flow of soul consciousness came to the Spirit Potion Valley. The situation in Spirit Potion Valley and Precious Tool Valley projected in three-dimensional images in front of his eyes. Bodies were piled on the ground. The dead soul's evil lair was floating above the valleys with its entrance close, but still emitting evil energy. Pagans of the Dark Spirit clan were watching the entrance of the evil lair anxiously while talking with each other using a strange language. Why did it turn into this? Shiryen was terrified, suddenly nervous. He didn't know what happened, but from what he had seen in those two valleys, human warriors gathered there seemed to have encountered a fatal strike. The Dark Spirit clan had killed 2/3 of them. Strands of his soul consciousness with the space power were operating in the entire Dead Soul Mountain range. Many images were transferred to him. He saw so many human warriors running away. He saw dead souls with real bodies chasing after them and killing them. Li Zhongrong, Cherry, Linya Qi. People he knew appeared in his sea of consciousness. It seemed Shiryen now had many eyes and could see everything happening in the whole Dead Soul Mountain range. Shiryen was completely struck with shock. He suddenly realized that at his realm, when he released all of his soul consciousness, he could only cover some mountains in the Dead Soul Mountain range. He also knew that the peak spirit realm warriors could hardly send the soul consciousness to every corner of the Dead Soul Mountain range. The soul consciousness had a limit, and the Dead Soul Mountain range was extremely vast. Unless it was a true God Realm warrior, it was difficult to cover the soul consciousness all over the Dead Soul Mountain range. The true God Realm warrior also needed a long time to expand his soul consciousness to cover the entire mountain range. And his soul consciousness could cross the distance across space. It didn't need to be around him and extend from him. However, as long as his soul consciousness was released, it could appear at the corners near the border of the Dead Soul Mountain range. It depended on his thought, but it wasn't limited by distance as it could instantly appear even in a remote area. Space power. Only when he perceived the subtle mysteries of the space power could he gain this special effect. Shiryen had a feeling. He calmed down his tense nerves and manipulated the strands of soul consciousness, which were extending too far from him. As his mind flickered, they changed. At the same time, his sea of consciousness had the second change. The spacelet that had just appeared in his sea of consciousness disappeared all of a sudden. The sea of consciousness then shook violently as it became extremely unstable. Flows of chaotic space energy that he didn't know the origin of started to affect his sea of consciousness. He hurried to pull himself together. He didn't linger on his thoughts while using all means to steady his sea of consciousness. He released the flows of soul consciousness to project the real-time images. His host's soul was moving back and forth like a shuttle through the images in his sea of consciousness, carefully checking each of them. Flows of chaotic space energy in his sea of consciousness condensed into a rope flying towards his host's soul. His host's soul trembled hard. In the sea of consciousness, his host's soul was like it was suffering a fierce thunderstorm. The host's soul was swaying. Flows of space energy were like hammers that could train the soul by pounding on his host's soul, making his host's soul adapt to the new space Upanishad that he had just learned. Shiryen suddenly retreated all the strands of soul consciousness he had released. He then concentrated on feeling the space power and gave time to his host's soul to adapt to the new situation. At the same time, his hollow soul in the foreign land was still under the attraction force of the Virescent sea. All of a sudden, it plunged into the sea. When the hollow soul just soaked in the sea, a formidable soul erosive energy got activated. The hollow soul's will and the seal of the host soul were all eroded rapidly. Before his hollow soul was assimilated, he vaguely saw a giant shadow in the deep place under the dark green sea. That shadow was like a living creature, a seabed demon, which released the cold, sinister thought that affected the aura of the whole foreign land and changed some rules of nature. Boom! The hollow soul was eliminated, and Shiryan's host soul was struck hard. The connection with the foreign land stopped instantly. Without the senses from the foreign land and his hollow soul, Shiryen could see the change of his host soul clearer. While the space slits were wandering around him, Shiryen calmed down his emotions and used the comprehending spirit change of the spirit realm, which depended on the host soul as the base to make another step in controlling and promoting power. He wanted to use the space power to enter the spirit realm. Before the transformation, he would use the space power to improve his body and train the host soul to sense further. Inside the mountain flank, space slits disappeared gradually. Shiryen sat still, trying his best to feel the changes. He was neither happy nor angry, just focusing wholeheartedly to comprehend the new knowledge in silence. The entrance of the evil lair above the Spirit Potion Valley and Precious Tool Valley had been closed a long time ago. Now, it only had a green light shimmering. Space slits around it disappeared all of a sudden. Since the entrance was closed, dead souls from the outside couldn't enter, and the dead souls from inside couldn't get out. The dead souls' evil lair closed. It was still there, but it was gradually shrinking until it looked like a green. Under the fearful, attentive watch of many members of the Dark Spirit clan, after the entrance was closed, the evil lair turned into a flickering green light, which seemed extremely unstable, as if it could disappear at any minute. Please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 557, Spirit Realm. Chapter 557, Spirit Realm. __. The Spirit Realm was the process of soul molding, using the power of the Upanishad he had perceived to enter the Spirit Realm to remold the soul, making it adapt to that change in power. That's how the host soul could use that power when the warrior entered a new realm. The power Shiryen had perceived was the space power. During the soul molding process, space energy was led and fused with the soul consciousness, which gave it the abilities of space. However, if the host soul wanted to use the real power of space, it required a deeper understanding and a long time of comprehending. Only spending time to sense and slowly perceive the space power could help the host soul use it fluently. Shiryen waked up, feeling feeble. The space slit next to him had disappeared a long time ago, leaving the mountain flank gloomy as before. Taking a look at the inside of his body, Shiryen's eyes lit up. The essence chi ancient tree had enlarged by 5 times. 1/5 of the ancient tree was now crystallized, containing the pure energy and essence chi. The other 4/5 of the essence chi ancient tree was gaseous. He needed to cultivate arduously for countless days, taking in heaven and earth spiritual chi to flood these 4 parts with energy, which would facilitate the crystallizing process. Once the entire essence chi ancient tree in his body was crystallized, his essence chi would increase 4 times more. It was the peak of the first sky of spirit realm. At that time, his essence chi would have reached the requirement to advance to the next minor realm. Shurian released the soul consciousness. Flows of soul consciousness disregarded the space or distance, operating in every corner of the Dead Soul Mountain range. His understanding of the space power hadn't reached the profound stage, which limited the distance that the soul consciousness could travel. According to his assumption, when his understanding of space power reached the most profound stage, although he was in the divine Great Land, he could still see all the changes happening in the endless sea. When his comprehension of space power was deep enough, his soul consciousness would change accordingly. One day in the future, he could even use the soul consciousness to search every corner of the Grace mainland. At that time, he could see flowers blooming or leaves shriveling dozens of thousands of miles away. It was space power. Once he reached the peak of spirit realm, at the threshold of true God realm, he would have the second transformation. With that, his host soul would molt to the God soul. At that time, his God soul would have space power, and it could synchronize his whole essence chi. When the essence chi had space power, each flow of his power could form a space blade that could slash through any kinds of physical defense to dismember people. The cut limbs would be in other spaces, and they would never have a chance to gather again. This was the most perfect condition. He also knew the path he needed to walk was still very long to reach that level. However, when he thought about the wondrous use and mysteries of the space power, Shurian was cheered up. He was waiting for the bright future earnestly. Flows of soul consciousness with space power were operating in the Dead Soul Mountain range. Now, his understanding of the situation in the region was much profound than anybody else. He focused on the locations of the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley. After an unknown period of time, 3 silhouettes zoomed over and arrived at the valleys like lightning. They were 2 men and 1 woman. The 2 men were muscular and good-looking, while the woman had a veil to cover her face. All 3 of them had a profound vision. Although they looked like they were in their middle ages, their real ages should be much greater than what appeared. Shurian's soul consciousness didn't detect the aura of any one of them. If they didn't suspend above the 2 valleys, he wouldn't even be able to see their shadows. Strange. Right when the 3 of them arrived, the Dark Spirit clan was startled. Clansmen of the Dark Spirit clan saw the 3 appear and started screaming in fear, looking at a spot of green light hovering above the 2 valleys. It was the Dead Soul's evil lair with its closed entrance. The group of 3 then released waves of energy covering the entire sky and earth. The Dead Soul Mountain range seemed to tremble under the effect of that energy. Some remaining flows of soul consciousness were cut off forcefully. Some of the Dark Spirit clan's high-level members were urging some of their strong secret techniques, which shot out beams of green light into the Dead Soul's evil lair, which had shrunk into a green spot. The closed evil lair was forced to enlarge as the crack appeared again. A strange, evil green energy burst out from that cave entrance, covering the whole Dead Soul Mountain range, which could shake even the earth. The group of 2 men and 1 woman slightly changed their faces. They looked at the cave entrance with serious face. No one knew what they were thinking. At the same time, a flow of Shurian's soul consciousness suddenly lost the situation of that area. Light crossed his eyes as he took a deep breath. True God Realm Warriors. He could confirm that the 3 people who had appeared in the 2 valleys were the true God Realm Warriors of the Radiant God Cult, the Pure Land, and the Devil Valley. Only the true God Realm experts appeared as ordinary people without any surging energy on their bodies. At first glance, they seemed not to even have a sea of consciousness yet. However, the power of this class of warriors could even change the whole earth and firmament. They always hid their aura. When an expert at the true God realm didn't use his power, he wouldn't look like a warrior, but more like a mortal human. People wouldn't be able to sense a beam of aura from him. 3 true God realm warriors appeared at the Dead Soul Mountain range. When they were about to slaughter the Dark Spirit clan, the strange energy from that Dead Soul's evil lair affected them. Shurian couldn't watch the scene now or be able to sense it, but he knew that an earth-shaking battle was taking place in the 2 valleys. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The ground under his feet transmitted a violent tremor, which could affect people from over 10,000 miles away. He knew that the three true God Realm warriors were fighting with the green energy inside the evil lair, which influenced the entire Dead Soul Mountain range. True God Realm was the peak existence of the divine Great Land. Presently, they were invincible. He understood that with his current cultivation base, if he took risks in coming to that area to watch the battle, he could be destroyed by just the shock waves. The War Devil was strong, but it could only fight with the Spirit Realm warriors. If it had to face the true God Realm of the divine Great Land, it would be terminated easily. Soon, he decided not to send any strands of soul consciousness to follow that fight. He just silently felt the Earth's pulsation. The Dead Soul Mountain range was like it was suffering a tremendous earthquake. Ear-splitting explosions reverberated everywhere. Even the mountain he was hiding in was trembling hard, as if it were about to collapse. Shiryen was frightened. At this moment, he finally experienced how monstrous the true God Realm warriors were. The mountain he was hiding in was more than 10,000 miles away from the Spirit Potion Valley. The fight happening on the other side was so fierce that the shocking waves had extended to his place. How formidable were those powers? The power that could move the mountain or level the sea shouldn't be more intimidating than this, right? Boom, boom, boom. A short mountain opposite to him collapsed as it couldn't bear it anymore. The mountain leaned towards Shiryen's place. Shiryen was terrified as he jumped out of the cave, floating in the air to avoid the rumbling rupture of the mountain. Suspending in the void, he observed the ground and the surroundings. Some weak mountains around were trembling hard, that they could collapse at any minute. The ground cracked, splitting unevenly. Cave-in happened everywhere. Numerous trees were broken down. Countless creatures were smashed to death. There was no plain area reflected in his eyes. Not good. Shiryen felt terrified as he suddenly remembered the ghost hunter, the ice-cold flame, and the earth flame. Even though they had left to cultivate, they should be around this mountain range. Shiryen was worried that they would be involved in this fight, especially the ice-cold flame and the earth flame. These two heaven flames had the special aura and were the top precious treasures that every warrior desired. Even if they were in the true God realm, having the heaven flame in their host's soul would benefit them a lot. The Dead Soul Mountain range now not only had the Dead Soul's evil lair, but also three true God realm warriors. Once those intimidating existences paid attention to them, Shiryen was afraid that the ice-cold flame and the earth flame would be subdued directly. Although the ice-cold flame and the earth flame were dangerous, they had to be aware of the level of their opponents. True God realm warriors could oppress these two kinds of fiery flames easily. According to the ice-cold flame, they could evolve more. Once they had reached a certain level, they would not be afraid of the true God realm warriors anymore. In the past, the ice-cold flame had been subdued by a true God realm warrior, and it had missed the best opportunity to evolve, which made it weaker than the other types of heaven flames. The earth flame could never withstand it either. This flame had just formed its intellect not long ago, so its evolution was still a long road ahead. As it had just taken the very first step, once a true God realm had an eye on it, the flame would be subdued soon. Shiryen was anxious. While he was floating in the sky, he started to release his soul consciousness. Wonderful connections shone in his heart when he urged his thought. Shortly, an invisible bond was created between the strange living beings and Shiryen. Some strands of his soul consciousness scattering in the Dead Soul Mountain range followed the feeble connection and found his strange companions. The ghost hunter, the king of demonic insects, and the devouring gold silkworm had befriended a group of demonic beasts. Most of them were at level 7, and some of them were at level 8. The ghost hunter, the king of demonic insects, and the devouring gold silkworm gathered with the beasts, using demonic beast way to contact them. He didn't know what they were discussing. The ice-cold flame was staying at the foot of a mountain. It was floating in a cold stream together with the Holy Spirit God. They seemed to be absorbing the energy inside the cold stream. The earth flame was strengthening its scorching power using the lava inside a volcano. The strange creatures that left him were operating in different places. His flows of soul consciousness circled them and sent them his messages. As his soul consciousness had space power, his sensing ability was improved a lot. In the past, his soul consciousness hadn't been able to sense their existences in such a long range. But now, not only could he sense them, but he could also send his thoughts to them. The ghost hunter, the king of demonic insect, the ice-cold flame all received his thoughts. Under his soul consciousness guidance, those strange living beings flew out from their locations, heading towards him. Shiryen relaxed his nerves and hurried to send them another thought, advising that they should be more careful because of the dangers in the Dead Soul Mountain range now. After they received the news, these creatures stayed alert and took the other way around to avoid the valleys, despite the fact that they had to spend more time to reach Shiryen. Chapter 558 Radiant God Cult's Master. Chapter 558 Radiant God Cult's Master. Above the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley, a dazzling green light rippled from the dead soul's evil layer after layer, which looked like a group of thousands of green ecliptics. Each ecliptic contained great power fluctuations. The green ring light was the strengthened barrier which had covered all the members of the Dark Spirit clan, saving them from the attack of the 3 true God realm experts. Virescent light columns as wide as a human shot out from the evil lair, piercing through the ground and thrusting deep into the soil. The 3 true God realm warriors had to mobilize their power urgently to face the light columns. At the same time, all members of the Dark Spirit clan were covered inside the green ecliptic, which kept them safe from the true God realm warriors' attacks. In the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley, the structures where the light columns shot through all crumpled, nothing remained intact. The 2 valleys, which had been existed for hundreds of years, were crushed down. Corpses on the ground got shot again, as flesh and blood splashed everywhere. The whole scene looked like hell on earth. The 3 true God realm experts from the Radiant God cult, the Pure Land, and the Devil Valley were facing the green light columns from the evil lair, but seemed like they couldn't hold it for more, let alone attacking the clansmen. Fortunately, the energy from the evil lair couldn't be maintained for any longer. Not long after that, the energy shot out from it gradually ceased. When the 3 true God realm warriors thought that they could catch all of the Dark Spirit clan's members, a suction force suddenly emitted from the dead soul's evil lair. The Dark Spirit clan survivors were overjoyed, turning themselves into beams of light and flying toward the evil lair. Shortly, all members of the Dark Spirit clan disappeared into the dead soul's evil lair. The evil lair then shrank again into a fist-sized green light spot, twisting and swaying in the air. All of a sudden, it disappeared into thin air. 3 true God realm warriors stood in the ruins of the 2 valleys while exchanging looks, their faces solemn. Afterward, they discussed something and then disappeared. In a cave in the east of the Dead Soul Mountain range, a several thousand meters tall mountain collapsed. Numerous big trees broke down as the ground cracked, revealing a deep, bottomless abyss. Elder Shui Mu of the Radiant God cult took Yu Lu and a group of disciples, struggling while floating in the air. They looked at the general direction of the Spirit Potion Valley, which was pretty far from them now, slamming their brows together. They were all worried. All of a sudden, a light flashed next to Shui Mu. One of the good-looking middle-aged man, who had just engaged in the battle with the Dark Spirit clan in the Spirit Potion Valley, appeared in the light. He threw a glance at Shui Mu, nodded, and said, "It's good that you're all right." Cult Master. Shui Mu, Yu Lu, and the others bent down to greet him, their faces full of respect. Yunhao, the master of the Radiant God cult, waved his hand gently to ask them not to be too polite. Then he said, "This is a big catastrophe. The Dark Spirit clan has revived. We didn't kill them timely, which will be a big trouble later." Shui Mu, Yu Lu, and the others discolored in fear. All of them knew Yunhao had a formidable power. Their cult master had taken action personally together with the masters of the Pure Land and the Devil Valley, but they couldn't eradicate the Dark Spirit clan. Now, he had appeared with a serious expression, which made them worry about the whole situation. In the Antiquity time, the Dark Spirit clan was an extreme race. After taking time to rest and regain their power in the foreign land, they have recovered almost fully. We don't know what happened to them in the foreign land, but they've become more terrifying. Yunhao's eyes were as bright as a torch as he spoke up faintly. Seems like there's an extremely intimidating existence in that dead soul's evil lair, which helps the Dark Spirit clan. Somehow, it can't leave the foreign land, but it can help protect the Dark Spirit clan through the distance of a whole world. This is way too incredulous. If even the cult master says that it's terrifying, then this existence is absolutely beyond us, added Xuemu. Yunhao slowly nodded. I think, if the three of us enter that foreign land and fight that existence, we wouldn't be able to come back unharmed. It's hard to estimate the power of the opponent. In the most conservative estimation, I think it should have the power of a peak true god realm expert. Everybody was frightened. The dead soul's evil lair covered all the members of the Dark Spirit clan and disappeared. We can't detect its current location. Yunhao hesitated, then continued, the three of us will stay in the Dead Soul mountain range for a while and try our best to find it. We'll damage it badly when the Dark Spirit clan isn't well prepared. Xuemu and his group listened to him in silence. While Yunhao was telling them about his plan, he suddenly changed the topic. Xuemu, you had sent me a message saying that there was an interesting battle in the Precious Tool Valley. Yes, Master, Xuemu explained with his respected face. A strange young man fought with Lai Feng and gained the upper hand. It's strange. That kid just has the peak sky realm cultivation base, but he could trouble Lai Feng to the point no one dared to believe. What's his name? Shiryen. Shiryen. Yunhao mused for a while. The corner of his mouth beamed an eccentric smile. Turns out it's him. This kid always gives us surprises. Master, you know him? Xuemu was surprised. He thought his master didn't pay attention to this trivial matter. He had gathered all the news of the Divine Great Land, screening and reporting some important news to Yunhao. However, he had never heard about the name Shiryen before. How could his master know this kid? Where's that kid? Yunhao didn't answer him, but inquired with great interest. Xuemu, Yulu, and the other disciple of the Radiant God cult were astounded. The cult master wasn't a man who liked gossip, but now he suddenly had interest in an anonymous kid. This had them bewildered. During his battle with Lai Feng, he seemed to fall into bedevilment. He then slaughtered the onlookers around, explained Xuemu. I've just left for a few days. Yunhao smiled. Not bad. Not bad at all. He could endure the battle with a puppet at Third Sky of Spirit Realm, and he also has dangerous beasts. This young man is really talented. Haha. Xuemu and the others looked at him with astonishment. They were wise enough not to inquire further. He should still be in the Dead Soul mountain range. I'm going to search for him. Haha. He has the Star Martial spirit. As the cult master, I can track him down with this, laughed Yunhao. Star Martial spirit. Xuemu and Yula screamed in unison. Yeah, Yunhao smiled. This kid comes from the Endless Sea. He has the Star Martial spirit. He's one of us. Last time in the dark magnetic noxious mist, he had joined hands with a disciple in our cult, whose name's Zhao Feng. When he arrived at the Divine Great Land, he fought with the Nings. I heard he had caused Ning Duquan some loss. Xuemu and Yulu were astounded. Xuemu was bewildered. Later on, he said, when he was in the Spirit Potion Valley, he didn't reveal his identity. If I knew he was one of us, I would have definitely kept him here. He should have some worries that kept him from telling his true identity. Yunhao waved his hands. No problem. No matter what his worries are, when he comes to the Divine Great Land, I want to have him in our cult. This man can beat up Lai Feng when he is only the Sky Realm cultivation base. His potential is endless. The Pure Land has just found a girl who has the soul of an ancient ancestor. Our god sect needs a plan, too. Then, he looked at Yulu and smiled again. You must try harder. That kid has never been nurtured in our sect. He is cultivated alone, but he could reach that level. Talking about the innate endowment, his is almost the same as yours. Yula smiled and nodded, but didn't say anything, his eyes strange. Right in front of everybody, Yunhao closed his eyes. The energy around his body was activated. Powers of the sun, moon, and stars with colorful colors constantly sparkled around him. A wave of sensing soul energy expanded quietly under the light of the sun, moon, and stars, starting to comb the Dead Soul mountain range. The power of the flaming sun, silver moon, and star in Shuemu, Yulu, and the others were agitated. They seemed to be struggling as if they wanted to detach from the warriors' bodies. As the master of the radiant god cult, the power Yunhao controlled could subdue any disciple in the cult. When his thought flickered, the energy of the opponents would be attracted and disturbed to the point they couldn't bear. Yunhao closed his eyes and pushed his energy further. From his body as the center, his power was rippling hard. Long afterward, Yunhao rolled his eyes, whose pupils as dazzling as the sun. Scorching divine light shot out immensely. "Cult master, did you find him?" Shuemu asked with caution. Yunhao nodded smilingly but didn't answer him. Starlight moved in his body. The power of the sun and the moon entered the stars, directly arousing some kind of a strange change. Shortly, Yunhao disappeared into thin air. "Yulu, you have a rival now." Waiting until Yunhao disappeared completely, Shuemu took a deep breath. Seems the master regards that kid pretty well. If he joins the God sect, he can replace Yun and become the son of God. Yulu beamed a faint smile from the corner of his mouth. "It's okay. It's much more interesting when your opponent's stronger." Shuemu frowned while looking at him. He then nodded slowly. "You should pay attention. To gain the favor from the cult master, you've been putting a lot of efforts. I know your effort has been more than anyone else's. I have bet my biggest stake on you. I don't want to see you fail. Don't worry. No matter who he or she is, the last one who stands will be me." Yula felt funny. His crystal-clear eyes showed his absolute confidence. It was the nature that a true expert should have. Only when they had the absolute self-confidence would they be unafraid of any kinds of provocation, which couldn't hinder them from performing their best. Yulu was that kind of a person. "Yeah, I favor you," Shuemu also smiled. Although he was surprised with the power Shiryen had demonstrated, he also knew Yuli's strength. Throughout the recent years, Yulai had been growing fast after each battle. Through each battle, he had learned something new. Shuemu had an absolute trust in Yulu. He didn't think that Shiryen, a man from the Endless Sea, could replace Yulu in the Radiant God cult. Chapter 559, Exposed. Chapter 559, Exposed. The Ghost Hunter, king of demonic insects, the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, devouring gold silkworm, and the Holy Spirit God received Shiryen's message. They flew around to avoid the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley to return to Shiryen. Shiryen didn't ask them what they did. Right when they returned, he immediately put them into the Blood Vein Ring. The Dead Soul Mountain range now filled with big dangers. If he were careless for a moment, he would never recover. Shiryen understood well that he was carrying a lot of treasures with him, which would make him a big target. Thus, he needed to leave this place of troubles as soon as possible. However, as soon as he had retrieved those strange living beings and hadn't even departed yet, his mind suddenly felt agitated, and his face changed dramatically. A tremendous strange energy fluctuation shot toward him rapidly that left him no time to react. Shiryen shivered. He was about to use the secret technique to get away underground. However, right at the moment, a dark energy cloud snatched down, covering him. A tall but thin figure appeared. His pupils reflected no light, which gave people a feeling of being cold. The master of the Devil Valley, Niarua. The gloomy energy cloud was like seawater enveloping him. The power of his entire body was restrained. No matter how hard he tried to urge his power, he couldn't move his essence chi. His negative energy wasn't suppressed, but he didn't dare to act rashly. He looked at the man with a calm face. "Who are you? Why have you restrained me?" A strand of your soul consciousness had appeared in the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley. "Were you sensing us?" Niarua's face was cold. "Your soul consciousness is a bit eccentric. If I didn't have a special tool, I could never find you here. Kid, where are you from? Why did you sneak on us? What do you want?" Shiryen was scared. His soul consciousness had space power, which he had used to flee away instantly from the valley. This man could track him down using only one beam of soul consciousness. He didn't shame his formidable existence at the true God realm. "I meant no harm. You guys created a big move, so I just wanted to check it out." Shurian pretended to be innocent. Did my soul consciousness sensing disturb you? Nyaruo curled his lips, cracking a dark, cold smile. Well, I just think that you should be an interesting kid. Even I can't send my soul conscious through 10,000 miles away in just a blink of an eye like that. You have only the Sky Realm cultivation base, but you can do that, which astounded me a lot. Shurian knitted his brows as his thought flickered quickly. He beamed a wry smile, then, what do you want? I want nothing. I just want to know your identity, grinned Nyaruo. You're a stranger. You don't look like the disciple of the 7 ancient factions. Otherwise, I should have known you. Besides the 7 factions, the ones who could raise you should be those recluses. Who's your teacher? Can I not answer that? Sure you can, Nyaruo grinned fiendishly. But I will enter your sea of consciousness and search the information in your host's soul. It shouldn't be a hard task, you know. But then, your host's soul will be a little bit annoyed. You don't want that, do you? Shurian got enraged. This man was a true God Realm expert. Intruding Shurian's host's soul was as easy as flipping his hand. If he did that, although Shurian could use the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame to harm him, he couldn't escape. Plus, if this man knew the secret of the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame, he would never let him go. This was tough. Shurian suddenly felt helpless. His strength and realm were much behind this man. Even if he used all the secret tricks he had, he couldn't threaten the other, except giving him a chance to see what he got. Then, he would never have a decent ending. Nyaru wasn't hurried. He just grinned, looking at Shurian with cold eyes as if he weren't afraid that the young man would do something sneaky. Shurian's brain was working quickly to find the way out. However, facing a monster at the True God Realm, he found that no trick could work. Oh, you're here. Too. At this moment, another voice came. Yunhao, the master of the Radiant God cult, appeared in a twisted, scorching light. Shurian felt his heart sinking. His headache swelled bigger. It was all right with one monster, but now he had another one. He was going crazy this time. Shurian felt a big regret in his heart. He blamed himself for being too slow, which helped these tremendous existences find him. Yunhao, why are you here? Nyaruo snorted. You can find us here, which means you know that this kid was sneaking on us too, eh? He's one of my cult's members. I'm coming to ask him to return to the sect. The Radiant God cult master smiled generously. Well, Life Phone was defeated, so you felt that your face was blemished. Are you here to take action personally? Life Phone. Nyaruo was stunned. A streak of light crossed his eyes. He said with a colder tone, You are that Shurian. When Feng Biao reported on the Dead Souls operation, he also remarked the battle between Shurian, Hao Hai, Chang Ge, and Lai Feng, which frightened Nyaruo. He had a deep impression with the name Shurian and had memorized it. He didn't know that the man in front of his eyes was Shurian. Having heard Yunhao mention the event, Nyaruo remembered immediately. He couldn't help but snort. Turns out it's you. Shurian wore a bitter face, not knowing what to say. He didn't know why Nyaruo came here or why Yunhao, the cult master of the Radiant God cult, had paid attention to him. Shurian felt that he hadn't done anything, but then why had he drawn many monsters here without reason? Especially the cult master of the Radiant God cult, he exposed Shurian's identity, which meant he seemed to know him. This made him more anxious. When he had stayed in the Ice Emperor city, Bai Guxing and the others had advised him carefully not to show up himself in front of Yunhao, no matter what. He always kept it in mind. He went to the Dead Soul mountain range because he wanted to avoid Yunhao. Although he had many calculations, he now recognized he was wrong. Eventually, Yunhao still laid an eye on him. He's my Radiant God cult's member, Yunhao smiled, looking at Nyaruo. He didn't talk much, but his intention of protecting the young man was obvious. Everybody knew that Yunhao liked to cover his men's shortcomings and characteristics. If he talked that way, he would definitely poke his nose in this matter. If Nyaruo wanted to take action, he had to finish Yunhao first. As they were all the peak warriors of the 7 ancient factions in Divine Great Land, Nyaruo knew how tremendous Yunhao was. He looked at Shurian with a dark look, taking a deep breath. Tell me, is it as what you said? Shurian, come here. Show him your star power, Yunhao smiled while his eyes squinted. Shiryan kept silent, but he had a big headache now with the worry. The thing he was afraid of the most was to use the star martial spirit in front of Yunhao. He was wary of revealing something. He didn't think that what he was afraid would come to him. Right when Yunhao came, he asked him to use the star martial spirit. He would be over this time. Look at his hesitant look. It's obvious that he doesn't know anything. Master Yunhao, do you really think that your pretense can make me step back? Said Niarua coldly. The Radiant God Cult Master was surprised, too. He started to doubt the information that Feng Biao had sent him. Releasing a bit of the star power was easy. What made this kid find things too difficult? Shiryan pondered, then made up his mind miserably. His face was as if he was attending a funeral. He carefully urged the star martial spirit, revealing a beam of starlight. Yunhao cracked a big smile, talking to Niaru. Did you see that? The star power couldn't be faked, right? Have you lost your hope yet? Niaru paled as he nodded, then didn't say anything. He disappeared shortly. Once Niaru left, the smile on Yunhao's face disappeared. He didn't say anything, but storming toward Shiryan and forcefully put his hand on Shiryan's shoulder. A flow of torrential energy started to pour rumblingly around Shiryan, storming into his heart which was full of starlight. Yunhao's look became bizarre. He sensed quietly, but he seemed to be more stunned as time went by. Shiryan got struck as he thought it wasn't good at all. Anyhow, Yunhao was the cult master of the Radiant God Cult. He had mastered using the power of the sun, moon, and stars. Using the star power in front of him, no matter how careful Shiryan was, he couldn't hide things from the old man's eyes. Normal people couldn't see the feeble flaming energy in his star martial spirit, but how could Yunhao not recognize it? Star power fused with flaming sun power. Not bad. Not bad at all. You surprise people a lot. You've widened my vision. After Yunhao finished his sensing, he retreated his arm, his face musing. He looked at Shiryan with eyes as bright as the torch while smiling. Without the secrets of the God Sect, how could you fuse the power of the star and the flaming sun? Shiryan felt as if he had a full stomach of bitter water. Closing his eyes, he said, I don't know what had happened. It just turned that way. Luck. It was just my luck. I'm doomed. Yunhao will kill me shortly. God damn it. So unfortunate. Shiryan cursed under his breath. He knew he couldn't hide things any longer, talking with a cold visage. It has turned out this way. What do you want me to do? What to do? Yunhao's smile hid a deep meaning. All right. Follow me to the Radiant God Cult. Our sect needs men with big guts like you. After we're done with the ceremonies, you will be a member of the God Sect. The future master of the God Sect could be you, perhaps. Shiryan was struck by surprise, looking at him disbelievingly. He still thought that Yunhao would never let him live. He had estimated the worst case, but things had turned differently. Yunhao's move was far beyond his estimation. What? You thought that I would kill you? Yunhao was stunned. Am I that narrow-minded? You have just combined the sun power, but you don't know the technique. What should I worry about? But the future. Future. Yunhao curled his lips. Who knows how the future will be? I've reached the second sky of True God Realm, but I can't see the future. Can you? Perhaps the Radiant God Cult won't exist in the future. As the master, I will disappear altogether with it. Why should I worry about the future? Shiryan was surprised. Chapter 560. Agreed. Chapter 560. Agreed. Yunhao had invited Shiryan sincerely, but the young man was still indecisive. He couldn't understand what Yunhao was thinking. Yunhao was the leader of the Radiant God Cult, with a great reputation in the Divine Great Land. He was a famous expert. According to the rumors, Yunhao had excellent manners. It was just Shiryan who was worried a little bit. What Bai Gusang and the other told him, he still kept it in mind, which made him suspicious of the other's deeds. Anyway, even if he were doubtful, he had no other option right now. Yunhao was formidable to the point that he could erase Shiryan completely in just a blink of an eye. Shiryan couldn't guess how Yunhao would treat him if he denied his offer. Each master of the 7 ancient factions always valued the extension of their sections. Yunhao should be of that kind. If Shiryan rejected the Radiant God Cult, he would become an unnecessary factor. In the future, he could become the enemy of the Radiant God cult. Of course, Yunhao didn't want to see that result. I'm coming with goodwill. You carry the powers of the God sect, so you should walk on the same path with the God sect. Yunhao wasn't hurried, as he continued while smiling. Your identity's a bit sensitive. You offended the Heaven Temple right when you just arrived the Divine Great Land. Now, even Niarua has his eyes on you. If I don't get involved, as you continue living in the Divine Great Land, you will have big troubles sooner or later. This wasn't to threaten him. In the Divine Great Land, no strong experts were nice. It was the same with people from the Heaven Temple and Niarua too. After a fight with Lifeng, he believed that his name would be spreading out pretty quick in the Divine Great Land. At that moment, he would be the target of many people. The Divine Great Land wasn't the endless sea. He couldn't rely on the War Devil to be invincible here. This man was a true God Realm warrior. Shiryen couldn't go back now. If he denied it, fatal troubles would come for him soon. He weighed pros and cons and then decided to accept the invitation. He needed to cross this gate first. He couldn't predict the future. When he had enough power, getting rid of the Radiant God cult wasn't impossible. All right, Shiryen nodded and accepted Yunhao's invitation. Yunhao laughed out loud. You young man, you're careful indeed. It's good anyway. This means you're not some sort of a person who likes taking risks. Great, you have surprised me. When I arrived here, I heard Xuemu say that you're at the Peak Sky Realm, but you could still defeat Lifeng. I didn't think that it has been just 10 days, and you have made a step further, straight into the Spirit Realm. Excellent. Shiryen just smiled and didn't answer him. I'm curious. What kind of understanding did you use to enter the Spirit Realm? Yunhao thought for a while and then asked impatiently. In Spirit Realm, the Upanishads of the power you have used to enter the realm will change constantly. If the power you got from the Upanishads comes from the Star Martial Spirit, I think your potential in the Radiant God cult would surpass Yuli's. Well, I'm sorry, but I have failed you. I didn't use the star power to break through, Shiryen shrugged. I was studying the teleportation formation and somehow stirred up space power. Yunhao's eyes brightened with astonishment. Space power? Good boy. I didn't think that your breakthrough had depended on this kind of a power. Yunhao complimented, but suddenly felt a bit disappointed. However, our sect doesn't have any documents of methods to cultivate this kind of a power. In the Spirit Realm, if you can't understand space power further, it's really tough to break through again. Shiryen smiled miserably. I know it would be that way. And you still want to rely on space power to break through again? Yunhao was astounded. I have never seen any warriors with a deep understanding of space power in the Divine Great Land. This means, on this road, you have to search alone, without any reference from the precursors. It will prevent your realm from thriving faster. You fella, you're harebrained. Shiryen couldn't snap back. Yunhao contemplated for a while, but he didn't continue this topic. Next, he asked Shiryen about the Endless Sea, concentrating on the three gods sect there. Shiryen didn't conceal anything. He told the man what he knew about the three gods sect. Yunhao constantly nodded, his face astounded. After listening to Shiryen's narration, he sighed. I haven't thought that after Ouyang grand-uncle left, he had a family there and could even make the branch of the Radiant God cult to have such good conditions. This time, Shiryen had no clues. Grandmaster Ouyang was a special talent of the God sect. Before I was born, he had some contradiction with the sect. Then, he copied a part of the books here and left alone. No one knew of his whereabouts ever since. I can confirm that the three God sect in the Endless Sea got the inheritance from Grandmaster Ouyang. I never thought that he could be that excellent to develop the Radiant God cult to that glory in the Endless Sea. Shiryen kept silent. He wasn't interested in the secrets of the Radiant God cult. And he had known since long that the three God sect in the Endless Sea should be a branch of the Radiant God cult. You said that Grandmaster Ouyang's grandchildren, Ouyang Luoshuang, has a tremendous cultivation base? Yunhao mused and then asked for more details. Shiryen nodded. Ouyang Luoshuang has reached the second sky of Spirit Realm. Her understanding of the God sect's power is much profound than mine. I think her potential is much bigger than mine, too. Yunhao's eyes brightened. Later, he laughed cheerily. You shouldn't underestimate yourself. I like you, kid. You aren't worse than her. Shiryan beamed a wry smile. Yunhao mused for a while but didn't inquire further. Come on, we should gather with Xuemu. Shiryan chased after him. In fact, Yunhao was sympathetic and didn't ask anything of the matters Shiryan was worried the most about, such as the war devil, the ghost hunter, the king of demonic insects, and the ice-cold flame. He was worried about those living beings as he was afraid that Yunhao had some bad schemes towards them. Fortunately, Yunhao didn't ask even a single question. He only inquired the information of the endless sea, and he seemed to not have an interest in these secrets. This made him relax his nerves. After 2 hours, Shiryan followed Yunhao to meet up with Xuemu, Yulu, and the others. Besides Xuemu and Yulu, there were 2 other disciples of the Radiant God cult, 1 man and 1 woman. They both looked young. The man was handsome, and the woman was more graceful. They were like Yulu. They were the young experts of the Radiant God cult, both at the peak sky realm. The man's name was Han Chang, and the woman was called Li Muyu. They followed Xuemu to the Dead Soul Mountain range to train themselves. Han Chang was cultivating the star execution, and Li Muyu was investing in the silver moon execution. They had a certain attainment in their cultivations. The biggest difference between Yulu and them was the realm. Yulu was cultivating the Flaming Sun execution, using the power of the Flaming Sun to enter the spirit realm. His will was firm, and his manners were calm. The 7 grand elders of the Radiant God cult always complimented him. He was the one who had the biggest chance to become the next leader of the God sect. After Shiryan arrived, Yulu smiled and welcomed him warmly, constantly calling him brother. He gave people a good impression. Quite the contrary, Han Chang and Li Muyu obviously had contradictions in their minds. They wanted to ignore and not befriend Shiryan. Shiryan was neither surprised nor angry, his face deliberate. He dealt with Yulu courteously, without sincerity. Then, they listened to Yunhao lecturing about the strange, evil energy of the Dead Soul's evil lair. That Dead Soul's evil lair is strange. It has so many space cracks inside. Shiryan suddenly intervened. Yunhao and Xuemu were surprised, looking at him. Xuemu was astounded. How do you know of the situation inside that Dead Soul's evil lair? Did you get there? Although Yunhao didn't talk, his eyes shone like the sun, beaming a beautiful halo that made people dizzy. Obviously, he was stunned on hearing what Shiryan had just shared. When I was comprehending space power, my hollow soul got there unknowingly. It was a strange, foreign land, which was full of space cracks. There's a soul sea that I couldn't see the shore of. Souls were floating there emotionlessly. In the bottom of that green soul sea, there seems to live a strange creature. It had a freezing cold, evil aura. Extremely dangerous. Yunhao and Xuemu were startled. Yunhao took a deep breath and talked with his light tone. Does that soul in the green sea have the life fluctuation of a living thing? No, Shiryan frowned, then explained, the atmosphere of death filled the place. The existence of that green soul sea seems to engage in soul energy absorption. My hollow soul could see many souls of the warriors from the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley dragged into that green soul sea. A streak of fear crossed Yunhao's pupils. He was hesitant, then nodded at Shiryan. Your information's crucial. I want to tell Niarua and Lin Meng. We need to check if the ancient records of the Pure Land and the Devil Valley have any writings of this formidable existence. Then, Yunhao closed his eyes, releasing his soul energy. He seemed to be sending the message to Niarua and the Master of the Pure Land, Lin Meng. Shiryan waited for him in silence. 2 minutes later, Lin Meng of the Pure Land arrived, bringing with her the hotshots of the Pure Land, Luo Yu and Yilai, together with Niarua, Feng Biao, and Lai Feng. Master Yun, what did you call us here for? Lin Meng had a clear voice like a child. Shiryan was amazed. Han Chang and Li Muyu had never met Li Meng before. They were stunned like a wooden chicken, gawking at the Master of the Pure Land with her face hidden behind the veil. The Master of the Pure Land was a little girl, but she had the height of an adult. Why did she have a childlike voice? Shiryan couldn't make a head or a tail out of it. Mingmei of the Devil Valley stood together with Chang Ge and Hao Hai. Her beautiful eyes were a bit gloomy as she was staring at Shi Yan maliciously. Shi Yan was bewildered. He didn't know which grudge he had developed against this girl that made her hate him that much. I want to announce to you guys officially, Yunhao wore a solemn face, pointing at Shi Yan, and continued with a low voice, from now on, he's a member of the Radiant God cult. Master Yun called me here to announce this? The clear voice of Lin Meng seemed to have a bit of anger. Master Yun has favored him too much, eh? Niaru snorted. Of course, it's not only this, Yunhao beamed a faint smile. Shi Yan, tell them. I think they are interested in your story more. Lin Meng, Niaru, and the others were surprised. Chapter 561, Wide Gap. Chapter 561, Wide Gap. Shi Yan described the scene he had seen in the foreign land in detail. Hearing him, Lin Meng and Niaru were frightened. The histories of the Pure Land and the Devil Valley are longer than the Radiant God cult. Do you know anything about the alien in that foreign land? Yunhao waited for Shi Yan to finish. He frowned and asked Lin Meng and Niarua. Niarua shook his head. Never heard about this kind of a creature before. Lin Meng didn't answer immediately. She hesitated for a while, then shook her head. The old writings of our Pure Land record a lot of foreign tribes in the antiquity time, but none of them match your description of that alien. Yunhao felt disappointed. Among the 7 ancient factions in the Divine Great Land, if we are talking about long history and the number of ancient books in possession, the Martial Spirit Palace ranks first. Lin Meng mused, then spoke up with a childlike voice calmly, perhaps, we should go to Martial Spirit Palace and ask them. Yunhao and Niarua had their eyes brightened. Among the 7 ancient factions, Pure Land and Martial Spirit Palace both had a long history that could track back to the antiquity time. However, Pure Land had a big change at one time, leading to the loss of a big part of their documents and records. Quite the contrary, Martial Spirit Palace had kept a lot of ancient books from the antiquity era. So now, they were considered the faction that had the most profound knowledge about antiquity creatures in the Divine Great Land. Right, we should ask the Martial Spirit Palace. I forgot about them. Yunhao nodded and smiled. Niarua also agreed. We'll stay in the Dead Soul Mountain range to observe for several days. If we can't find the Dead Soul's evil lair, we will leave. Lin Meng contemplated, then continued. Perhaps the Dead Soul's evil lair has left the Dead Soul Mountain range. If we linger here, I'm afraid it will just waste our time and efforts without a positive result. So, I think we should extend our vision to see what's changing. Then, we shall discuss again. Yunhao and Niarua nodded. Precursor Lin. At this moment, Shi Yan suddenly rose his voice, his face strange. Lin Meng turned around. They couldn't see her expression under the veil. What? Xia Xin Yan's in the Pure Land now, right? True. Can I? No. Lin Meng cut him off impolitely. Her childlike voice was clear but cold. I know you, and I know the relationship between you and Xin Yan. Here's my advice for you. Being a human, you should understand your position. Xin Yan is destined to be the future master of the Pure Land. She will surpass me to reach the realm that no one can imagine. She has reached the second sky of Spirit Realm now. In 1 or 2 years, she'll step directly into the third sky of Spirit Realm. Do you understand me? Yunhao, Niarua, and their men changed their faces. As the masters of the Radiant God cult and the Devil Valley, they knew that the Pure Land had a treasure. But they could never think that Xia Xin Yan had reached such a high level in just a short time. Yulu, Lai Feng, Ming Mei, and Luo Yu suddenly felt their pressure increasing. They looked at Shi Yan with a vaguely jeering expression. Lin Meng told him to give up. Although she didn't say it clearly, her idea was clear enough. He wasn't good enough to be with Xia Xin Yan. Shi Yan wore a gloomy face. He clenched his teeth while rage filled him. But he had no choice. He had many things he wanted to say to persuade her. However, what Lin Meng told him had stopped his words right in his throat. He couldn't say anything. Even I can't estimate Xin Yan's future. You should give it up. Don't struggle. You will just hurt yourself, kid. Lin Meng wasn't trying to be polite at all. Yunhao couldn't say anything. Nobody could talk on behalf of the other when talking about love. Yunhao himself was terrified on hearing how powerful Xia Xianyan was. He had thought that Shiryan was tough, but after he heard it from Lin Meng, he understood that that little girl's cultivating path would have no barriers. Even Yunhao himself had a helpless feeling. He thought that although Shiryan could be more powerful, he could never reach her level. Okay. Shiryan clenched his jaw, taking a deep breath. He took out the jade bottle and threw it to Lin Meng. This drop of life original liquid, please give it to her. I hope she could thrive another step further. Yunhao, Niarua, and the others looked dumbstruck. Xuemu, Yilai, Feng Biao, and the others had their eyes heated up, gazing at the jade bottle that contained the life original fluid. How precious the life original fluid was, everyone here understood it well. This was the strongest guarantee for experts at Spirit Realm to leap up to the true God Realm. Xuemu, Yilai, and Feng Biao were all at the peak of Spirit Realm. Lin Ming didn't move, but the jade bottle disappeared shortly. She put it away and then talked with her cold and clear voice. I'll give it to her. Shiryan smiled generously. It's good then. I don't know how the future will be, but I'm sure that my future isn't some trajectory you can define either. Overreaching yourself, Lin Ming snorted, waved her hand, and left. We should go. Warriors of the Pure Land, including Yilai and Luo Yu, flew after her. This kid is a lovebird. It's obvious that he has no hope here, but still, he gave her the life original liquid. Haha, don't you know that it would widen the gap between you two? Niarua smiled faintly, his voice ironical. Shiryan didn't reply him. Niarua didn't get angry. He gave Shiryan a deep look and then shifted his look to Feng Biao. Master Yun protects him. Do you still want to rob the life original fluid from him? Feng Biao darkened his face, throwing a malicious look at Shiryan. Kid, I remember you. You better not fall into my hands. Well, when I was in the Sky Realm, you couldn't hurt me. Now that I've reached the Spirit Realm, do you think you can trouble me? Shiryan snapped back, his face disdainful. Feng Biao put on a ruthless expression. Let's go, Feng Biao. Niaru waved his hand, beaming a gloomy smile. Shiryan, I gained big profits from the battle with you. In the future, if we have a chance, I want to experience your power again. Lai Feng, the eccentric but handsome man, bowed to him with his sincere face. Shiryan was surprised. He nodded and said, everyone strives hard. Lai Feng wasn't enraged. Since he had reached Spirit Realm, he had an absolute and blind confidence with a boiling fighting will. This man was the most dangerous opponent. Also, he was someone he had respected. Niaru glared at Lai Feng and nodded silently. Yunhao appeared amazed, looking at Lai Feng as he complimented, Kid, you are not ordinary at all. No wonder why Naru has chosen you. Lai Feng bowed to him with respect, then looked at Shiryan one more time. We bid farewell here. When the secret territory opens, I'll be waiting for your arrival. Then, he left together with Niarua and Feng Biao. Shiryan couldn't make a head or tail, looking at Yunhao. What's that secret territory? Yunhao grinned. An interesting place. After a while, the secret territory will open. You should try harder. Perhaps, you'll meet the one you want to meet there. Shiryan's eyes brightened. I hope to hear more about it. We should get back to the God Sect first. After you finish the investiture ceremony, you'll get to know the mysteries of the secret territory. Yes, sir. After Lin Meng, Yunhao, and Niarua took their men away, a green spot flashed and then flickered like a firefly inside a ruin in the Spirit Potion Valley. That green spot gradually swelled. Seconds later, it was as big as a grinder, emitting a strange, cold energy. A strong suction force shot out from the cave covered in green halo. Next, pieces of bodies flew up, as if some kind of force was guiding them, entering the light cave continuously. After 15 minutes, all cut limbs in the two valleys had been dragged into the evil lair. There was no bloody scene in the two valleys anymore. Inside the light cave, the ash-gray sky was vast, with space cracks appearing everywhere. Numerous bodies piled up on the green soul sea. Flows of evil green energy were winding the dead bodies like virescent silky fibers, constantly condensing. 3 high-level members of the Dark Spirit clan with their real bodies were surrounding the pile of bodies to carry out some kind of evil sacrificial ritual above the Green Soul Sea. It seemed that the members of the Dark Spirit clan released flows of soul consciousness to do some trading with the Green Soul Sea. After an unknown time, the Green Soul Sea surged, shooting out numerous beams of green light, pouring on the center of the sacrificial altar. A giant space crack appeared in the vast gray sky. A dark green light shot out from it. It was a dead soul. It was different from the normal dead souls, as it had the shape of the members of the Dark Spirit clan, but without a body. It had just a thin, empty body, but its face was clear. Obviously, this dead soul wasn't affected by the space slits or the Green Soul Sea. As this dead soul arrived, all the clansmen of the Dark Spirit Soul, no matter with or without a body, all were joyful. They started to come near and bowed to it one by one. The dead soul moved slowly towards the Virescent Soul Sea. Next, it released the willpower to negotiate with the Soul Sea. It seemed to demand something as its countenance got excited. The Green Soul Sea twisted and surged. Souls floating there were like pieces of meat, moving and crawling terrifyingly. Long after that, the Sea Soul and the Dead Soul had come to an agreement. A streak of satisfaction reflected in the Dead Soul's eyes. Shortly, thousands of dark green tentacles shot out from the Green Soul Sea, piercing the altar. Bloody cut limbs on the sacrificial altar seemed to be refined by some kind of evil force. Bloody bones were broken into pieces, while some weaker bones exploded since they couldn't endure the pressure. After an unknown period, the giant meat sacrificial altar was completely covered in the dark green light, turning into a green chunk of meat. The dead soul that all Dark Spirit clan's clansmen worshipped wore an excited face. It was stirred up, gazing at the green meat chunk without blinking. When the green meat shook gently, the dead soul couldn't wait anymore, directly jumping into it and turning into a flow of light, entering the giant meat block. When the dead soul entered completely, the meat shook harder. Rings of strange, evil energy rippled from it, which was as strong as the energy from any true God realm warrior like Nia Rua or Lin Ming. That cold, evil soul seemed to have a new home, a new body, to start a new life. All members of the Dark Spirit clan screamed while the other dead souls could only cheer silently. Seemed like they had completed the racial transformation that stirred them up to the point they couldn't control. The Green Soul Sea was tranquil. It didn't surge anymore, gradually retrieving the strange energy. The body of a new Dark Spirit clan's member struggled to get out of the meat with tremendous power. Chapter 562, Evil Reputation. Chapter 562, Evil Reputation. The Radiant God cult was situated in the east of the Divine Great Land. There were dozens of kingdoms, grand mountains, and big rivers, spiritual crystals, and herbs were abundant. The heaven and earth aura was dense and pure. The Radiant God cult were structured with Yun Hao as the master and his 7 grand elders. Among the 7 elders, Ji Mu and Yuing had the first sky of true God realm cultivation base. They were cultivating the Flaming Sun execution and the Silver Moon execution respectively. The other 5 elders, including Xuemu, were at the spirit realm. Xuemu, Yunxiu, and Zhaowa were at the 3rd sky of spirit realm, while Lu Xiao and Ji Nua were at the 2nd sky of spirit realm. Besides the 7 grand elders, there were dozens of protectors, whose cultivation base wasn't ordinary. Some of them had reached spirit realm. The Radiant God cult was big and strong with countless warriors. Hotshots there were as many as dense clouds. Their internal relationships were complicated too. Not all of them tried to live in harmony and peace. There was competition in bright light and in the dark. The Radiance Mount was the root of the God sect. It stored many secret books for cultivating for the God sect. Also, it was where Yun Hao cultivated. The 7 grand elders had their own territories, which had different big or small countries within. These countries just needed to do their duties with the corresponding elders and would turn in essence chi crystals or valuable cultivating materials. The 7 grand elders had chosen children with the special innate endowment in the region. They would invest in them, making them the new members of the God sect and teach them the techniques of the Radiant God cult. The children would become their core members. Shiryan followed Yunhao. As soon as he saw the internal area of the Radiant God cult, he finally realized that the sect was really vast and rich. They soon reached Mount Radiance. Facing up to look at the majestic, towering mountain, Shiryan could feel the abundant heaven and earth aura here. Shiryan was moved. Breathing the spiritual chi in this mountain helped him feel refreshed. Mount Radiance jutted up to the sky, piercing through tiers of clouds. From the foot of the mountain, they couldn't even see its peak, but clusters of shining white, cotton clouds wandering about. Mount Radiance had many kinds of herbs planted on it. Spiritual animals were walking freely here and there. Also, many protectors and warriors were cultivating the herbs there. A pavilion was situated in the middle of Mount Radiance's flank. 6 elders, including Ji Mu, Yu Ying, Yun Xiao, Zhao, Lu Xiao, and Ji Nua, were seated at 6 different corners. Their disciples were discussing outside the pavilion. Master sent the message to ask us to gather at Mount Radiance. I heard that he wants to hold the investiture ceremony for a kid. Yun Xiao was a middle-aged woman wearing a yellow royal robe. Her eyebrows were as beautiful as drawings. She had an oval face with soft and smooth skin. Her bearing was elegant and graceful. She took a sip of her tea, then slightly frowned. I don't know who's worth such treatment from the master. Before that, Shuemu told me that the one who's about to join out sect comes from the Endless Sea. Ji Mu beamed a faint smile. I didn't expect that such a rural area like the Endless Sea could produce a talented youth. Seems like we need to take care of that place more. Endless Sea, Zhao snorted. What kind of talented young men that remote, barbarian area can nurture? I think the cult master just wants to make a small thing big. Do you know its young man's name? Yuing asked softly. Yuing was also female. She had a long ginger hair that draped over her shoulder. She looked roughly 27 or 28 years old. This woman was long-limbed, wearing a dark green dress with silvery embroidery. She looked as mild and elegant as a lotus. Her eyes were bright, and her aura was like the cold moon. Shiryan something, Ji Mu frowned. Shiryan, Yu Ying's face suddenly became cold. She snorted. I've heard this name. Ji Mu, Zhao, Yun Xiao, and the others had their eyes lit up, looking at her but didn't say anything. I have insiders in the fighting union. I heard that when this brat arrived at the divine Great Land, he had an ambiguous relationship with the 4 snow flowers of the Ice Emperor city. This brat was sinking into their beauty and had fun there. He has caused Bingqing Tong's group to turn their back to the Ning family. They've caused grudge against the Nings. Heaven Temple has also put an eye on him. They want to kill him indeed. Yuin explained with a faint visage. Turns out he has some tricks, Ji Mu grinned. Bingqing Tong wouldn't be deceived by a gigolo easily. But if he could have an affair with her, I kinda admire him. You don't understand my point here, Yuing arched her brows, replying coldly. He has an impure relationship with all 4 women, Bingqing Tong, Xuan Yuju, Han Chui, and Lung Dan Qing. The 3 men present there, Ji Mu, Zhao, and Lu Xiao were terrified, revealing their admiring faces as they secretly complimented the young man in their minds. The 4 frosting snow flowers of the Ice Emperor city were famous in the divine Great Land. Many experts, who claimed themselves to be distinguished and accomplished, all wanted to get the attention of these 4 snow flowers. But none of them had ever succeeded. Shiryan had just arrived the divine Great Land, and he had an ambiguous relationship with these 4 flowers that fast. This stunned Ji Mu and the others, as they envied him a lot. Let aside his realm, his tricks in hunting for beauty's superb. Zhao constantly appraised, the 4 snow flowers have kept themselves pure. The ice jade technique they're cultivating requires a pure body, which restrains them from having affairs. This kid is tremendous that he can make the 4 of them submit to him. Ji Mu and Lu Xiao also nodded, continually acclaiming the young man. Yuing, Yun Xiao, and Ji Nua filled their faces with disdain. They suddenly became cold, snorting. Ji Mu and the other 2 beamed a wry smile, but didn't concern themselves with it much. They were curious to know the details. Yuin wore a cold countenance as she was cursing under her breath that no man was really a gentleman. That brat caused grudges against Ning Duquan. The Nings hate him, and so does the Heaven Temple. I don't know how many troubles will come with him later on. If Master asked us to wait, it's obvious that he favors this kid a lot. Under our Master's protection, what can the Heaven Temple do? Jimu cracked a faint smile and didn't pay attention to Yu Ying's words. Our Master has good vision. The one he has favored shouldn't be an ordinary warrior. Lu Xiao was bewildered for a while, then said to Jimu, "You had found Yulu. You and Shuemu have invested much into him. Aren't you afraid that after that kid comes here, he will replace Yulu?" Jimu was stunned, but he felt funny. Even if that kid can be more powerful, he isn't Yuli's match, not strong enough to be a threat. I respect his tricks in hunting beauties, but I know Yulu. And I don't think that a kid from the Endless Sea could replace his position in the God Sect. Yu Ying, Yun Xiao, and Lu Xiao nodded silently. Yulu had been an excellent disciple of the Radiant God cult for years. His innate talent was earth-shaking. All of them had been watching Yulu growing up step by step until he reached the current level. They all knew how strong Yulu was. That's why they didn't think that Shuryen could become a threat to Yulu. At most, he's at the level of Han Chang or Li Muyu. Jimu smiled, not too concerned. What about Muyu? Snorted Yu Ying. If her fortune was better, she could have broken through the true God realm. I think even Yulu couldn't defeat her at that time. Harumph. I've trained Muyu myself, and I know her competence. Jimu gave her a wry smile. All right, she's great. I'm not going to quarrel with you. Let the reality answer. Yu Ying snorted and didn't try to debate with him further. Right at this moment, a beam of soul consciousness expanded from the peak of Mount Radiance. Jimu's group was shaken. All of them shot up from their seats, taking their disciples to the peak of the mountain. Mount Radiance's summit. Stone and metal buildings towered the place. The ground was level, with the majestic grand palace situated in the middle. The stone pillars of the palace were carved with flying dragons and roaring tigers, seeming live. A purple-red light flashed as Yunhao, Shuryen, and Shuemu appeared in front of the palace in the center. Jimu's group had been waiting for them. When they saw Yunhao, they bent to greet him. Yunhao waved his hand, beaming a faint smile. I believe you guys have received my message. The temple's arranged properly. We should proceed the investiture ceremony right away. Jimu, Yu Ying, and the other nodded as light shone radiantly. They all gazed at Shuryen. Shuryen, let me introduce, Yunhao grinned. They are Jimu and Yu Ying. They're all at the first sky of True God Realm. This is... Shuryen slightly bent his body to greet them. He said, Greetings, elders. All right, let's get to the temple for the ceremony. The 7 grand elders and I will certify it. It's enough to give you face, right? Yunhao laughed cheerily, then strode into the temple. The temple was solemn and well-prepared. Smoke meandered from incense burners, while the light of the sun, moon, and stars shone in the sky. Strange light spots showered like it was raining. The initiation ceremony was tedious. Under Yunhao's guidance, Shuryen carefully completed everything. He kept a calm and sound mind from the beginning to the end. He wasn't urgent or cautious. After he'd bathed and changed his cloth, he came to bow to the ancestors of the God Sect. Then, he received the sacred light shower performed by Yunhao. Shuryen had completed the last step of the ritual to officially become a disciple of the Radiant God cult. During the whole process, the 7 grand elders were watching him silently, their eyes bright. When he finished the ceremony, the 7 elders were amazed. Their appraisal for him increased a little bit. This kid from the Endless Sea didn't show a streak of fear under such a big and solemn ceremony. He was deliberate, as if he had experienced bigger situations, which made people feel strange. From now on, you're the disciple of our God Sect. The God Sect will shelter you, but you have to offer all to the God Sect. Yunhao is like a hoax medium, describing in details the doctrines of the God Sect. Eventually, he talked to Yu Ying. I'm going to leave here to the Spirit Martial Palace to discuss important matters. I'll give Shuryen to you. You will tell him about the internal regulations and taboos. And find a territory for him to take care of. Yu Ying bowed her head to receive the order. The secret territory is about to open. This time, we have to put forth everything to counter. Before it opens, you have to help Shiryen understand the martial techniques of the Radiant God cult. Yunhao continued to advise her. Ying nodded continually. The other elders observed quietly as their thoughts quickly crossed their minds. They were a bit surprised. After Yunhao had finished all arrangement, he smiled at Shiryen. You've just joined us, so we won't give you too many good treats. Our Radiant God cult will not be impartial in administering rewards and punishments. The more you contribute to the God sect, the more rewards you will receive. You should be prepared. Shiryen kept silent. Yunhao arranged everything, then called the 7 Grand Elders to conduct a meeting in the secret chamber. After that, he turned into a beam of light and disappeared into the horizon. Chapter 563. Big Dipper God Arrow. Chapter 563. Big Dipper God Arrow. After Yunhao had gone, elders like Ji Mu, Xue Mu, and Lu Xiao also left one after another. Ying didn't hurry. She stayed in the secret library in the Temple of the Radiant God cult, picking an ancient book of the Big Dipper God Arrow. When she went out, she threw the book to Shiryen. You take this book of Big Dipper God Arrow and cultivate. Shiryen received the book, smiled, and thanked her. This woman kept a cold attitude towards him from the beginning. Faint hatred flashed in her eyes, which confused him. He didn't know when he had displeased this woman. Mu Yu, take him to the Northern Gem Mountain. From now on, the Northern Gem Mountain will become his cultivating place, assigned Ying. Li Muyu regarded her. The corner of her mouth showed that she was taking a bit pleasure in the other's misfortune. Shiryen knitted his eyebrows. From what he could observe from Ying and Li Muyu's complexions, he understood that Northern Gem Mountain wouldn't be a nice place. Although he wasn't so pleased with Ying's arrangement, he couldn't do anything. This woman was a true God realm expert, and that she could subdue him in every aspect. A man standing under the eaves had to bend his head. Currently, he just needed a shelter. He didn't have a bigger hope. Liumu wore an indifferent face, letting out a slight snort. Follow me. Shiryen followed her nonchalantly. The Northern Gem Mountain. 6 high, uneven mountains didn't have a single blade of grass. This area was around 100 li square. There was a small city, whose population didn't surpass several thousand. They didn't have hotshots, valuable mines, or spiritual herbs. Although the Northern Gem Mountain belonged to the Radiant God cult, it was a barren and remote area under the direct management of Ying. However, this woman had never cared about this place. The Northern Gem Mountain wasn't suitable for warriors to cultivate, since it didn't have a mineral load or cultivating materials. Spiritual chi here was dilute, not as rich as even some small islands in Endless Sea. The Northern Gem Mountain was near the Spirit Treasure Sect, adjacent to the Gray Cloud Forest, where many demonic beasts dwelled. People said that there were even level 8 demonic beasts living there. It was a good place for the Radiant God cult's disciples to hunt the demonic beasts and train themselves. Along the way there, Li Muyu didn't talk much. She kept a distant attitude towards Shiryen. After she took him to the back of the Northern Gem Mountain, she said, "This is the place my master arranged for you. From now on, this area belongs to you. You will manage the Northern Gem City too. You will receive the yearly offerings from the city. And you're now in charge of maintaining the Northern Gem City, preventing the attacks from demonic beasts." Is it the place? Shiryen floated in the air with a gloomy face. He released his soul consciousness for a while and felt extremely disappointed. The Northern Gem Mountain situated in an area of several hundred li square, but there was no Nirvana Realm warrior. Under his soul consciousness, nothing was concealed above or under the ground. No mineral loads, no special spiritual herbs, and the heaven and earth aura was dilute. Basically, this wasn't a good place for warriors to cultivate. Yes, it is. Li Mi laughed in her head, but she appeared unconcerned. She snorted and said, "You should stay here and cultivate. If you want to accomplish the Big Dipper God Arrow soon, you should take a good care of this Northern Gem Mountain." After saying those words, Li Muyu left the Northern Gem Mountain. Spiritual chi was dense and immense in High Cloud Pavilion. This was where Ying cultivated. It was placed in the center of an area surrounded by many high mountains and big rivers. Crystal clear lakes were everywhere. They planted a lot of spiritual herbs to cultivate medicine, and flowers bloomed year-round. Limuyu returned to the place, then directly came to High Cloud Pavilion and reported to Yuing. Yuing nodded, her face cold. That kid doesn't have good manners. You shouldn't contact him much. Since he has come, he will have conflicts with Yulu and Han Chang soon. When they mess up, we just stay aside. We don't need to concern with him. Limuyu replied her with respect. Teacher, his innate endowment is really extraordinary. In the Precious Tool Valley, he had defeated Hao Hai, Changhua, and Lai Feng successively. At that time, he had only the Sky Realm cultivation base. After around 10 days, he broke through Spirit Realm. However, he's arrogant, and his disposition is cruel. He had slaughtered innocent people in the Precious Tool Valley. People hate him, but they are afraid of him. Although the God Sect has many properties, not many places are really good lands. The cult master favors him a lot. Perhaps he will take him to the secret territory when it opens. You have to try harder. Don't let the others suppress you, advised Yuang. Limuyu nodded. Shurian floated above the northern Gem Mountain. His soul consciousness traveled many places, but he didn't find any precious materials. Shurian felt really disappointed. Anyway, he didn't have big expectations. He found a random cave in the northern Gem Mountain, got in and summoned the Ghost Hunter, the king of demonic insects, the Holy Spirit God, and the devouring gold silkworm. There are demonic beasts in the Gray Cloud Forest and some cultivating materials. You guys can go out and take a walk. Also, help me find some materials. Then, he told them the names of the materials he needed. The Ghost Hunter, the king of demonic insects, and the Holy Spirit God soon had a high intellect, especially the king of demonic insects and the Holy Spirit God. They had a wide knowledge of human warriors cultivating materials. The king of demonic insects and the Holy Spirit God had memorized the materials he asked. The 4 strange living beings left the northern Gem Mountain and went to the Gray Cloud Forest to find the cultivating materials as Shurian had advised them. Shurian continued to build a massive scaled teleportation formation, which connected to the Endless Sea. However, a big teleport formation required many kinds of materials. Although Shurian's storage ring had many essence chi crystals, he didn't have many precious materials. There were many things he couldn't buy with essence chi crystals. Even though Yunhao favored him, he couldn't violate the cult's rules by giving him the properties of the cult. He could only help himself. It was lucky that he had arms. King of demonic insects, the Ghost Hunter, and the devouring gold silkworm were formidable beasts. They couldn't be defeated in the Gray Cloud Forest. As long as there were some materials in the forest, they could dig them up for him. What made him worried was the ethereal crystal. The ethereal crystal was a fundamental material that the teleportation formation needed the most. He could find alternatives for the other materials, but not the ethereal crystals. Without the ethereal crystal, even if he had comprehended the mysteries of the teleportation formation, he couldn't build it. However, in the entire divine Great Land, the ethereal crystal was really scarce. The Precious Tool Valley didn't have it. He didn't know where to find the crystal. He didn't ask Yuang, since he knew she wouldn't help them even if he asked her. Inside the mountain flank, Shurian took a deep breath and then took out the Big Dipper God Arrow book, concentrated his mind, and started reading it. The Big Dipper God Arrow was a secret technique that used the star martial spirit to attack with the star power. It would be condensed according to the position of the northern 7 star into the Big Dipper arrow. Then, the user had to pour the essence chi constantly into it to shoot it out. When he was in the dark magnetic noxious mist, Zhao Feng had told him about the mysteries of the Big Dipper God Arrow. However, the situation had been rushed at that time, so they couldn't talk much about the technique of the Big Dipper God Arrow. Shurian read through the Big Dipper God Arrow book once. His eyes lit up as he was amazed. Compared to the simple description of Zhao Feng, this Big Dipper God Arrow book was much complicated, and the techniques there were more exquisite. Of course, performing the Big Dipper God Arrow couldn't be separated from using the star power. However, besides the power of stars, he could pour the essence chi into the Big Dipper God Arrow. The Big Dipper God Arrow used the star power to condense the bow and the essence chi to create the arrows. Or he could use the star's power to make the arrows. Also, he could combine the essence chi and the star's power to make the most powerful arrow. The Big Dipper God arrow had 5 types. They were the star falling, star raindrop, meteor catching moon, mighty galaxy, and 7 stars brilliant world. Each type required the combination of star power and essence chi. The essence chi would form different styles of attacks. Each type had a different formation. The power of the Big Dipper God arrow would grow together with the improvement of realm and essence chi. After thinking for a while, Shi Yan's eyes became brighter. He realized that this Big Dipper God arrow was somehow miraculous. If he could master it, it would be a big help. He repressed the bad feeling in his heart, staying in the northern Gem Mountain to study the Big Dipper God arrow. With the experience he had from comprehending space power, when he tried to feel the mysteries of the Big Dipper God arrow, he could progress fast. Compared to the complicated and abstruse teleportation formation, this Big Dipper arrow had neither changes nor matters that he couldn't understand. As long as he practiced enough times, it wasn't difficult to control the Big Dipper God arrow. Half a day later, at midnight in the northern Gem Mountain, a silhouette was floating in the air. He was urging the star power, condensing a Big Dipper bow. Crystal clear, shining arrows were set on the bow, then shot out fiercely. Each arrow was formed by the combined power of star power and essence chi. They darted at fast speed in the air. The arrows were like a dense shower of swords, gathering into a bunch, plunging down rapidly, and then expanding like eye-catching fireworks. Energy fluctuations shot out everywhere like water pouring from the galaxy, extremely magnificent. This beautiful scene was like a meteor shower. Radiant rays shot out that could enchant people. Many low-realm warriors in the northern Gem City moved to watch the scene. They were observing the firework performance from afar. All of them were surprised and constantly complimenting. Long after that, Shi Yan retrieved his power. While feeling the star power moving in him, his face was bright and joyful. The Big Dipper God arrow martial technique wasn't as evil as the gravitational field, nor as tyrannical as Rampage, or as eccentric as the Death and Life Seal. However, this martial technique could release the star power in his body with a relatively strong power. What surprised Shi Yan more was that his soul consciousness could be enclosed with each arrow, and he could control the flying trajectory of the arrow. After he had reached the spirit realm, his soul consciousness had been strengthened with space power, which had a tremendous piercing power and lightning speed. The arrow with his soul consciousness was cunning, fast, and bursting as if it could cross the space. This was extremely extraordinary. Each arrow carried along a flow of soul consciousness, using it to direct the arrow. Also, it enhanced the power of the arrow. The Big Dipper God arrow wasn't an extremely profound martial technique, but in his hands, it seemed to vary miraculously. Each type he performed was earth-shaking. Shi Yan breathed gently. Each arrow was sometimes fast, sometimes slow. They flashed in the air, sometimes dazzling, sometimes dim. All of a sudden, numerous rays of starlight gathered around him from all directions like birds returning home. The beautiful starlight disappeared into his body, and the star halo in his body changed accordingly. Spots of starlight twinkled unceasingly in his heart. It seemed like some special change was happening. Shi Yan was amazed. He hurried to concentrate his mind and felt it. Chapter 564. Fusing Light Energy. Chapter 564. Fusing Light Energy. Shi Yan was floating above the 6 barren mountains of the northern Gem Mountain, his face stunned. After using the Big Dipper God arrow this time, his star martial spirit seemed to have a positive change. Shi Yan concentrated on sensing. Spots of starlight scattered in his heart, among which he saw one blazing cluster containing the sun chi. This star looked dazzling. That light spot represented the sun. Around that cluster of light were 7 other light spots which assumed the position of the Big Dipper. This arrangement was similar to the variable Big Dipper God arrow he had performed. At this moment, from the sunlight emitted from that small sun, waves of flaming energy sometimes rippled, then gathered at the spots of the Big Dipper. Receiving the sun power, the light spots of the Big Dipper dazzled as if they were breaking apart. That blazing halo vaguely blended with a red hue. Shuryen was amazed. He quietly moved his soul consciousness, guiding it into that sun power cluster which facilitated the absorption of the sun power. His magical soul consciousness silently manipulated the small sun, accelerating the flowing speed of sun power. When more flaming sun power poured into the Big Dipper, Shuryen could feel clearly that the starlight and sunlight were fused, which upgraded the power of the Big Dipper. Shuryen was stunned and happy at the same time. He controlled the soul consciousness to move faster. Gradually, more flaming sun power emitted from the small sun. Thriving along with the increasing flaming sun power, the Big Dipper started to have a magnificent change. After a long while, no matter how much more flaming sun energy poured into it, the change of the Big Dipper's energy had halted. Seemed like it was saturated. Losing the control of soul consciousness, Shuryen sensed his body. He could feel the enhanced power in the Big Dipper after the energy fusion clearly. Shuryen was happy, but he didn't stop there, using the stimulating technique of the Big Dipper God Arrow to guide the star power. As his thought just flickered, the Big Dipper in his heart fiercely shot out a thick column of light energy. Strong energy quickly gathered in front of him, forming 7 light spots, which had a dark red core of the sun power and was covered in silvery halo. While his thought changing, the Big Dipper bow was shaped. Shuryen poured his essence chi as an arrow was formed gradually. This arrow had the energy from his essence chi, and the Big Dipper bow had the power of the sun and star. These 3 kinds of energy gathered, and the arrow radiated magnificently, its halo dazzling. Swoosh! The arrow tore the space as a fast meteor, darting towards the opposite mountain in just a blink. Puff! The arrow pierced deeply into the mountain range, thrusting through the rigid mountain flank like cutting through thin paper. Rocks collapsed at the first encounter. A seemingly endless hole as big as children's arm pierced deep into the mountain. Shuryen was overjoyed. He came and checked it carefully, then couldn't help but laugh cheerily. It turned out he could use the fusion of Star Martial Spirit's power and the Flaming Sun energy that way. Energies of the Flaming Sun, the Silver Moon, and the Star of the Radiant God Cult were the inherited powers. Each martial technique comprehended from the Power Upanishad were interlinked. The light power formed by the fusion of sun power and star power, of course, was stronger than the single star power. This arrow had a much stronger piercing force, with greater bursting power than before. The Big Dipper God Arrow wasn't too profound a martial technique. However, in his hands, it had complicated variables with increasing power. With this path, Shuryen imagined that he could apply the same method to any martial techniques which utilized the star power. He could pour the Flaming Sun energy into the martial technique to increase its power. No wonder why Yunhao could subdue the other elders of the Radiant God Cult. When he could fuse the power of the Flaming Sun, Silver Moon, and Star, the same martial technique in his hand would be thrice as strong as what the elders could do. This was just a conservative estimation. At this moment, Shuryen couldn't define the increasing power of the fused light energy, but he thought that it shouldn't be that simple an increase. He found it hard to predict the actual power, but he could confirm that if Yunhao performed the Big Dipper God Arrow, its power had to be obviously tremendous. Fusion was the kingly path. At this moment, Shuryen finally understood why the Radiant God Cult considered fusing the 3 powers their most precious asset. And he finally knew why only the cult master of the Radiant God Cult knew the fusing technique. It was like Shuryen had suddenly picked up a treasure on the street. He realized that joining the Radiant God Cult this time was a wise decision. Otherwise, his star martial spirit could never promote to its best competence. He had spent several days continually in the Northern Gem Mountain to study the technique to apply the combined flaming energy and star energy more carefully. Along his ascetic cultivating process, his understanding of the Big Dipper God Arrow had reached a profound level that was far beyond Yu Ying's estimation. 10 days later, Ghost Hunter, king of demonic insects, devouring gold silkworm, and the Holy Spirit God had come back, bringing with them materials for refining weapons and many bones and crystal stones from demonic beasts. These 4 strange living beings had followed his advice to enter the gray cloud forest, where many demonic beasts were dwelling. They had a big harvest this time. Ghost Hunter, the king of demonic insects, and devouring gold silkworm seemed to have absorbed some effective energy from some beasts. Their aura had a clear change. The Holy Spirit God was a special existence, so it couldn't use the beasts to enhance its power. Among the 4, it had the smallest change. In the cave, looking at the cultivating material presenting plentifully on the ground, Shiryen was smiling widely, constantly appraising, "Not bad, not bad. Everybody has spent good effort." While speaking to them, he squeezed some drops of his immortal blood and gave them to the 3 beasts. The Ghost Hunter seemed to have a desire for his immortal blood too. Similar to the king of demonic insects, the devouring gold silkworm, this beast could use his blood to strengthen its power. Cultivating materials were abundant in his cave. Some of them could be used to build teleportation formation. Shiryen wasn't surprised on seeing them. There were some beasts living in the gray cloud forest, but that place couldn't have all the materials needed for his teleportation formation. Seeing such an amount of materials, he was happy already. After categorizing and stacking them away, Shiryen didn't assign more tasks to them, retrieving them one by one into the blood vein ring. Then, he considered in silence. He still lacked a lot of materials to build a teleportation formation, especially the ethereal crystal. The Radiant God cult also had a special place to do trading of cultivating materials. Disciples of the sect could exchange their goods or buy them with essence chi crystals. However, the Radiant God cult's transaction field was limited, and it wasn't open all the time. Shiryen remembered the Spirit Treasure Sect, which was adjacent to the Northern Gem Mountain. The Spirit Treasure Sect was one of the 7 old factions in Divine Great Land, which was the richest force. They had a big addiction to collecting, cultivating, and refining materials. Warriors of the Spirit Treasure Sect would choose to depend on external resources in their cultivating way. Secret treasures and pellets were essential for Spirit Treasure Sect's warriors. And because of that factor, the Spirit Treasure Sect had a structure of specialized blacksmiths and alchemists. For instance, Li Zhengrong was originally from the Spirit Treasure Sect, but no one knew why he had left the sect and cultivated alone. The Spirit Treasure Sect not only collected the materials, but also traded them. Each region of the sect had its own transaction field of a big scale. Shiryen now lacked many types of materials for his refining weapon practice. Perhaps he couldn't collect them in the Radiant God cult, but he would have big opportunities in the transaction fields of the Spirit Treasure Sect. His thoughts had flickered for a while, then Shiryen smiled as he decided to visit the Spirit Treasure Sect. He would sell a part of the materials he didn't need and try to find sufficient materials to build the teleportation formation. He didn't care about the Northern Gem Mountain. Since he had come here, he had never visited the Northern Gem City. He considered this place a foothold of his, and he didn't have a feeling of possessing the area. Thus, before leaving, he didn't need to make any arrangements, directly flying away. The Spirit Treasure Sect was situated next to the Northern Gem Mountain. After flying across an immense meadow, Shiryen appeared in the territory of the Spirit Treasure Sect. In the Divine Great Land, although the Spirit Treasure Sect was one of the 7 ancient factions, it didn't advocate fighting. Quite the contrary, it was like a businessman, as it kept a harmonious relationship with all forces. People in the Spirit Treasure Sect weren't anti-foreign. Most of the warriors there came from other places. Just like Shiryen, they came here to sell the materials or find secret treasures, martial techniques, and materials that they couldn't buy anywhere else. This sect was really open, and they always welcomed visitors. The wonderful stone city of Spirit Treasure Sect had shops everywhere, which was several times bigger and more crowded than the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley. Warriors visiting the wonderful stone city came from everywhere. They were the disciples of the Pure Land, the Radiant God Cult, the Devil Valley, or even the Martial Spirit Palace. However, a big part of them were all warriors of some small sects and schools. Spirit Treasure Sect didn't reject anyone. They didn't sell tickets to enter their cities, since countless colorful shops along the street were their true money trees. Most of the store owners in the wonderful stone city were the disciples of the Spirit Treasure Sect. Each disciple of the Spirit Treasure sect had sharp eyes in inspecting treasures. They were smart businessmen. They had exploited the advantages of their territory to collect cultivating materials, selling crystals and medicine that they didn't need. Through this market, they collected more treasures and pellets to maintain their strong fighting competence. Shiryan strolled in the wonderful stone city in excitement, visiting each store. Indeed, there were many crystals and other wooden tools needed for his teleportation formation which Shiryan had found in the wonderful stone city. Along the way, after cleaning up 10 shops, he had a big harvest, collecting almost all the necessary materials. Shiryan then went to a big store that collected materials from warriors. Shiryan exchanged all the stuff he didn't need in the storage ring to essence chi crystals. After this business, the number of chi crystals in his storage ring had been stacked up thickly. Shiryan! A pleasantly surprised voice came from the road ahead of him. Right after that, a silhouette flew over, wearing the complexion of meeting a long-lost friend, Yi Changfeng. Chapter 565, Wonderful Stone City. Chapter 565, Wonderful Stone City. Shiryan was startled. When he realized that it was Yi Changfeng, he smiled. It had been several years after they had separated in the dark magnetic noxious mist. Shiryan went to the divine Great Land and the Dead Soul Mountain Range. He thought that he could meet Yi Changfeng there. However, this brat had gone to seek his freedom somewhere else. Even Li Zhengrong couldn't find him. Shiryan had come to the wonderful stone city to collect the materials for his teleportation formation. It was their destiny they could meet up here. Yi Changfeng laughed cheerily, walking towards him. Follow him were 3 other people Shiryan had known, Linji, Luo Xiao, and Luo Ming. He had met these 3 in the dark magnetic noxious mist. As for Linji with her hot body, not only had he met her in the dark magnetic noxious mist, he had slapped her several times. Seeing her now, he couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Linji felt a bit awkward too. She lingered in the distance, away from them. Brothers Luo Xiao and Luo Meng had to call her several times. She then reluctantly walked towards them. Bro, you do know how to struggle well. After you came to the divine Great Land, I've heard many rumors about you. Yi Changfeng smiled evilly. Well, is it true that the 4 snowflowers of the Ice Emperor City have a relationship with you? Shiryan was stunned. This dude didn't inquire about anything but this matter. Well, men were always men. No serious relationship. We are just friend. Normal friends, Shiryan smiled begrudgingly. Luo Xiao and Luo Meng came over with the same evil smiles on their faces. They continually gave him compliments. They seemed to have a big desire, too. Stop it. People rumor that you have subdued the 4 snowflowers of the Ice Emperor City. I have heard that even Qing Ting Dong and her sisters keep silent when they talk about the relationship with you. Your denial doesn't work, bro, laughed Yi Changfeng. Linji pouted. When she joined the group, her face was filled with disdain while her eyes reflected her hatred. Shiryan ignored this woman. He talked with Yi Changfeng, Luo Xiao, and Luo Meng, asking them what they had been through these years. We aren't worth mentioning. Surely, our experience isn't as interesting as yours. Yi Changfeng put on a sobbing countenance. The old demon forced me to study the spiritual formations every day. I have struggled hard to get rid of it. Then, the old demon asked me to tell him all the things I've experienced with you. Bro, you're a disaster. Any place you go, accidents happen there. Sigh. Since you visited the Dead Soul Mountain Range, no one dares to go to that place anymore. My teacher had to move out too. The catastrophe of the Dead Soul Mountain Range had spread out all over the divine Great Land without him realizing it. No matter it was the 7 ancient factions or the disciples of the small sects, they tried to utilize their means to get the situation over there. Before the danger of the Dead Soul's evil lair was solved, no warrior, blacksmith, or alchemist dared to return to the Dead Soul Mountain Range. At the moment, the holy place of the alchemists and the blacksmiths had become isolated. Although Li Zhengrong and Kuda were strong, they weren't as strong as Yun Hao and the others. Even Yun Hao and Nia Rua couldn't solve the Dead Soul's evil lair problem. So, Li Zhengrong and the others, of course, had no other way around. Reluctantly, Li Zhongrong and his people had to leave the Dead Soul Mountain range and find new places to cultivate. According to Yi Changfeng, Li Zhongrong and Lin Yiqi would come to the wonderful stone city and stay there for a while. After several years, Yi Changfeng didn't have many changes. His realm was now the second sky of Nirvana realm. Except for that, he had nothing earth-shaking. He didn't talk much. After narrating his brief story, he shut his mouth. However, Luo Xiao and Luo Meng had a great interest in the relationship between Shi Yan and Bing Qingtong's group. They kept asking questions. Shi Yan didn't want to talk about this. He just beamed a wry smile and kept silent. Brothers Luo Xiao couldn't help but ask Yi Changfeng to exploit the information from Shi Yan. All right, don't ask too many questions. It's not as dirty as you thought. Shi Yan smiled forcefully, grunted to the three pervert men who were really persistent with the matter. Why did you guys come to this wonderful stone city? Of course, we should be in the wonderful stone city, Luo Xiao continued. My teacher's the city master of the wonderful stone city. If I don't stay here, where else I can go? Luo Xiao, Luo Meng, and Linji Dijie are all the apprentices of Old Zhu. This wonderful stone city is Old Zhu's territory, explained Yi Changfeng. Shi Yan was surprised. He knew that Old Zhu was Zhu Yi, the master of wonderful stone city, one of the elders of the spirit treasure sect. However, he didn't expect that Lin Ji, Luo Xiao, and Luo Meng were Zhu Yi's disciples. Zhu Yi had the third sky of spirit realm, with a good reputation in the spirit treasure sect. He understood doing business well. Under his management, the wonderful stone city was polished and lively, which attracted so many warriors here for cultivating materials. This person was neither an alchemist nor a blacksmith, but he had special knowledge of rare treasures. Just with a glance, he knew how much a type of material should be priced at. In the spirit treasure sect, Zhu Yi was a rare expert as he always focused on cultivating, his competence excellent. Since the three of Linji's group could have him as their teacher, they must have good fortune. Oh, that's it. Shi Yan smiled. I came to the wonderful stone city to find some materials I still lack. Thank goodness that I met you here. As you are the host, it would be convenient to help me find them. Then, he listed more than 10 kinds of material he needed. Luo Xiao and Luo Meng listened to him attentively. After he finished, Luo Xiao answered him, it's not difficult to find the other materials. Even if the wonderful stone city doesn't have them, we can help you search in the other cities of the spirit treasure sect. However, the ethereal crystal is really rare and precious. We don't have any stores that sell it in the wonderful stone city. Shi Yan felt disappointed. If the spirit treasure sect didn't have the ethereal crystal, he didn't know where else to find it. Without the ethereal crystal, building the teleportation formation just wasted his effort. Do you know where to find the ethereal crystal? Shi Yan mused and asked. What do you need it for? The ethereal crystal has only one function, which is to build a teleportation formation. Do you know how to do that? Yi Changfeng was stunned. Shi Yan just smiled, not wanting to explain. Do you know where to find it? My teacher knows, I suppose, Lin Ji suddenly added. Shi Yan's eyes brightened. Can you take me to meet your teacher? This shouldn't be a problem, Luo Xiao laughed loudly. My teacher really likes you. When we came back from the dark magnetic noxious mist, we told him about you. It's just been several years, and you have stirred up many things since you came to the divine great land. I think my teacher has a big interest in you. Shi Yan forced a smile, then please take me to meet him. No problem. Luo Xiao and Luo Meng led the way. They walked directly to the wonderful stone city palace of the city master. Zhu Yi was having some guests. When he heard Luo Xiao and Luo Meng's calling, he wanted to scold them. But after he got to know the situation, Zhu Yi's eyes brightened. Little friend, you are Shi Yan? Zhu Yi laughed. Shi Yan nodded. Younger generations will surpass us in time indeed. Zhu Yi looked cheerful. He mused, then changed his complexion, looking at a withered old man next to him. Yi Ji, take a look. The old man frowned as he was assessing Shi Yan, his face strange. Shi Yan, this is my teacher's brother, Uncle Yi, Luo Xiao introduced with a smiling face. Uncle Yu loves freedom. He likes to collect strange things. Shiryen was cheered up. He slightly bent his body to greet the old man. Precursor Yi, do you have the ethereal crystal? Yi Xiong was an elder of the Spirit Treasure sect. He liked to travel. He didn't have a permanent address as he didn't stay in the Spirit Treasure sect for the whole year. He knew many special and peculiar places in the Divine Great Land. I have some ethereal crystals, Yi Xiong nodded. He pondered for a while and then said, anyway, I don't lack anything. And I don't have the intent to exchange them. Yi Xiong also had the third sky of Spirit Realm cultivation base. His aura was old and thick, which proved that he was a dangerous expert. As he said that, Shiryen felt itchy in his heart and he couldn't repress it. He forced a smile. Precursor Yi, I really need the ethereal crystal. I can pay a high price. Is it possible? Yi Xiong shook his head and said deliberately, I said I don't lack anything and I don't want to sell it. Shiryen was filled with disappointment. Yi Ji, don't you need hotshots to accompany you to that place? How about Shiryen? Zhu Yi smiled. You don't stay in the sect for the full year, so your information isn't updated. Don't look down on this young man. He had subdued Ning Duquan in the Ice Emperor city. I heard that Yuli Ming, the freak, also died in his hands. If you have him as your company, your chance to win will be better. Yi Xiong's eyes brightened, but it seemed he didn't buy it. He said louder, he killed Yuli Ming? How could it be? Shiryen, perhaps you should prove your value a bit, Yi Changfeng added at the right moment. If you have this sort of power, I can give you the ethereal crystal, as long as you help me with one thing, Yi Xiong said with a serious face. Shiryen didn't say anything, summoning the War Devil. As soon as the War Devil appeared, an earth-destroying aura shot out everywhere. Lin Ji, Yi Changfeng, Luo Xiao, and Luo Meng were startled, forced to back off. Light shone in Zhu Yi's and Yi Xiong's eyes. They were shivering in thrill. Okay, Yi Xiong shouted. He took a deep breath and said, I can give it to you. Shiryen retrieved the War Devil to his blood vein ring. As long as you agree to accompany me to the Shady Firmament Old Mound to catch a Heaven Thunder Beast, I'll give you the ethereal crystal. Yi Xiong said briefly. Shiryen was stunned. Shady Firmament Old Mound, Ancient Corpse Tomb, and the Dead Soul Mountain Range were the three hazardous areas in the Divine Great Land. The Shady Firmament Ancient Mound was in the Spirit Treasure Sect's territory. It was a bizarre prohibited area. Even the experts of the Spirit Treasure Sect didn't dare to operate near it. Rumors said that it had some extremely dangerous barriers made in the antiquity time. However, to Shiryen, the Shady Firmament Old Mound was a special place. It was the ancestors' land of the demonic Sound clan. That place kept the secret treasures and old books written by the demonic Sound clan's ancestors. Before he came to the Divine Great Land, he had planned to visit there. Yi Xiong's condition, although it was beyond his anticipation, suited his plan well. Not a big deal, Shiryen agreed immediately. Chapter 566, Heaven Thunder Beast. Chapter 566, Heaven Thunder Beast. Seeing his frank and straightforward agreement, Yi Xiong was quite happy. Little brother's frank enough. Don't worry. When we finish the business in the Shady Heaven Old Mound, I'll give you the amount of ethereal crystal that pleases your pocket. Zhu Yi laughed, his face cheerful. Yi Ji, now that you have another support, you can be more certain about this trip. Yi Xiong smiled happily. Heaven Thunder Beast had the thunder attributes. It knew how to use the power of thunder. Among the demonic beasts, Heaven Thunder was a dangerous kind. Heaven Thunder Beasts had different levels, and had the ability to break through the level and evolve. Yi Xiong wanted to capture a level 8 Heaven Thunder Beast, which was equivalent to a third sky of Spirit Realm Warrior. Normally, the demonic beasts were one level stronger than human warriors. Moreover, they had innate magical abilities. Heaven Thunder Beasts could control lightning. It had an innate godly strength. Compared to experts at the peak of Spirit Realm, it was much stronger. If Yi Xiong relied on only himself to capture the beast, it would be really tough. We're waiting for the other two. After they come, we'll depart towards the Shady Firmament Old Mound. Zhu Yi's eyes was a bit strange. I've heard that you've come to the Radiant God cult. Where did you depart from? Northern Gem Mountain. Zhu Yi smiled cheerfully. Well then, wait to see the other two. I think you know them too. Who? Don't be anxious. You'll see them soon. Zhu Yi and Yi Xiong weren't hurried. After Shi Yan agreed to join them, their attitude towards him became friendlier. These two warriors then asked him many questions about the Endless Sea. They seemed to be interested in this warrior's gathering spot near the dark magnetic noxious mist. Shi Yan cooperated with them, but he was surprised inside as he was anticipating who the ones going to join them were. The time he had spent in the Divine Great Land wasn't too long, and the hotshots he'd met weren't so many. As Zhu Yi and Yi Xiong were the elders of the Spirit Treasure Sect, Shi Yan guessed that the ones they were waiting for would include Li Zhongrong. Yi Changfeng was here, anyway. But it was beyond his prediction. Half a day later, when two women arrived together, Shi Yan was astounded. They were Yu Ying and Yun Xiao of the Radiant God cult. Ha ha ha. Zhu Yi laughed, his face happy. It's tough to invite Elder Yu and Elder Yun here. Come here, please. We shall discuss the situation first. Why are you here? Ewing took Li Mu with her. As she arrived, she rolled her eyes at him, not bothering to hide her snort. Shi Yan pouted his lips. Our journey this time to the Shady Firmament Old Mound has our little friend Shi Yan as a part of it. Zhu Yi smiled and explained. Shi Yan's realm isn't low, and he has some strange treasures. Elder Yu, you shouldn't look down on our little friend here. When he was in the Ice Emperor City, even Yu Liming had to fall. Ewing snorted, her face disdainful. Borrowing external forces. It isn't he who's really strong. Shi Yan didn't care about that. Yun Xiao put aside a lock of her bangs, her smile shining. Same conditions. She looked at Yi Xiong. Yi Xiong nodded. Yun Xiao smiled contentedly, then it's good. We should make everything clear before the operation, which will facilitate our cooperation. Yun Xiao also brought a female apprentice. Her cultivation base was the same as Li Muyu, third sky of Sky Realm. She was called by Hui Quan. This girl had a round, soft face that looked like a sweet apple. She had short maroon hair, which made her look energetic, accompanied by a long-limbed body. Like Yun Xiao, she cultivated the star execution of the Radiation God cult. When Bai Hui Quan arrived, her round eyes gazed at Shi Yan as she beamed a smile, talking with Li Muyu in a low voice. Seemed like she was really curious about Shi Yan as she kept whispering to Li Muyu. The other girl didn't want to talk much and just answered some of her questions. Shi Yan, my little friend, please don't find it weird. The wonderful Stone City and Elder Yu's territory are near. I have a good relationship with Elder Yu, which is normal. Elder Yu and Elder Yun are close friends, so it's natural that they come here together. As Zhu Yi saw Shi Yan being surprised, he smiled and explained. Shi Yan responded to his explanation with a nod. It's just a Heaven Thunder Beast. Is it worth a big arrangement like this? Ewing felt suspicious. Even if we need to capture it alive, it isn't too difficult. Don't you have another plan? She looked at Yi Xiong and Zhu Yi with a doubtful complexion. Shi Yan was moved. Although the Heaven Thunder Beast was a level 8 demonic beast, people sitting here were all third sky of Spirit Realm experts. Especially Zhu Yi and Yi Xiong, they were the elders of the Spirit Treasure Sect. They should have many secret treasures. They surely had something to subdue the Heaven Thunder Beast. If these two joined hands with the support from their treasures, although catching the Heaven Thunder Beast was hard, it shouldn't be a big problem. The problem is that it is not only me who has laid my eyes on that Heaven Thunder Beast. Yi Xiong beamed a forced smile. Seems that people of the Heaven Temple and the Martial Spirit Palace want that beast too. I want to make it quick. Before they come, we should be done. When he said that, Yu Ying and Yun Xiao changed their visage. The Martial Spirit Palace and the Heaven Temple were mighty forces that belonged to 7 ancient factions. If they encountered these people while catching the beast, it would be troublesome. Master Zhu, when you informed me about this case, it seems you didn't mention this situation. Yu Ying frowned, her face unhappy. She used to think that this wouldn't be too difficult. Moreover, the conditions Zhu Yi and Yi Xiong offered them weren't bad. That's why they agreed to help them. If she had known that the experts of the Martial Spirit Palace and the Heaven Temple were involved in this, she wouldn't be that frank. With 2 more competitors, the possibilities would vary. She understood that the Martial Spirit Palace and the Heaven Temple were tough to deal with, as these forces weren't weaker than the Radiant God cult. Don't worry, we won't encounter them, Yi Xiong hurried to explain. Only I know where the beast is. When we get there, I'll lead the way. We'll find it soon. Even if people of the Heaven Temple and the Martial Spirit Palace arrive earlier, they can't touch the right door. Ease your mind. If we meet them, you can just ignore it. We won't let you put forth much effort, Zhu Yi assured. Yu Ying and Yun Xiao relaxed and only then nodded to agree. Why do you want to catch the Heaven Thunder Beast? Shi Yan intervened all of a sudden. Yu Ying and Yun Xiao had just calmed down. When they heard his question, they paid more attention. Their bright eyes gazed at Yi Xiong. I can't talk much about this, Yi Xiong forced a smile. Shi Yan frowned, but didn't inquire further. He understood that it wasn't a simple matter. If one took their money, one had to save them from disaster. The deal between him and Yi Xiong was simple. He would help the old man catch the Heaven Thunder Beast, and Yi Xiong would give him the ethereal crystal. As to what Yi Xiong needed the beast for, the old man didn't have an obligation to explain it to him. If Yi Xiong didn't want to talk about it, Shi Yan wouldn't bother him further. Then he kept silent, waiting for their arrangement. Soon, Zhi Yi, Yi Xiong, Yu Ying, and Yun Xiao had determined the delegates. Yi Xiong was in charge of showing direction. Zhu Yi gave each of them a soundstone as the communication tool. We'll talk about the weakness and how to catch the Heaven Thunder Beast on the way. Zhu Yi arranged everything and then smiled again. Yi Ji has been waiting for it for a long time. If you guys don't mind, shall we start now? Everybody nodded. Zhu Yi smiled, taking out a flying crystal carriage. This was a crystal treasure that had hundreds of top-grade crystal stone as the engines, together with more than 10 kinds of materials to refine. It worked under the control of the crystal stone. This flying carriage was huge. It could carry more than 10 persons, flying in the sky like a giant demonic beast. As long as it opened, it cried with the wind. Zhu Yi and Yi Xiong led everybody to get in the sleigh. Then, they turned around and spoke to Shi Yan and Yu Ying. Get in. This sleigh has a fast speed. It uses only the energy from qi crystals, so we can save our energy. Keep the power. We can use all of our strength in the Shady Firmament Old Mound to catch the beast earlier. Lin Ji, Luo Xiao, and Luo Meng felt happy seeing their teacher's signal. They hopped in the carriage. Yi Xiong didn't take any apprentice, so he was lonely there. However, after he got in the carriage, he sat down quietly, took out a yellowed paper and read it. Let's go. Yu Ying didn't hesitate much and nodded to Yun Xiao. Right after that, the 4 people got in the flying carriage. Uncle Zhu, Yi Changfeng stood on the ground, wanting to join. Your teacher's about to arrive. You'd better stay here. I don't want that old ghost to come trouble me, Zhu Yi laughed, but he shook his head to turn down the young man. Yi Changfeng felt miserable. He sighed bitterly. If I knew it, I wouldn't come to the wonderful Stone City. I have no share in anything. Wait for me. When I come back, I'll find you for a drink. Shi Yan grinned, then patted his shoulder and hopped in the flying carriage, sitting next to Li Muyu and Bai Huiquan. The crystal stone formed the foundation of the carriage. It had a purple-red roof. The front was conical with more crystal stone, which looked like a sword, narrow at the tip and enlarging at the back. Let's go, Yi Xiong urged. Zhu Yi smiled and nodded. A light shot out from his finger to the top of the flying carriage. The crystal stone inside the carriage suddenly brightened dazzlingly like diamonds. Its power was activated torrentially, flying with the wind rapidly as a shooting star, getting out of the wonderful stone city instantly. Heaven Thunder Beasts are the beasts of lightning class. They know how to use the power of lightning and thunder. Thus, when we catch them, we can't use any soul techniques and treasures. Lightning power is the soul-killing spear. Treasures and soul techniques would be struck into ashes. When the flying carriage steadied, Yi Xiong took a deep breath. His face was serious when he explained the dangerous features of Heaven Thunder Beasts. Heaven Thunder Beasts don't have a big body, but its skin and fur are thick. It can resist some piercing martial technique naturally. Those beasts are smart. The beast we're going to hunt is a level 8 one, so its skin's really tough. We need sharp weapons, which I have prepared. You guys just need to help me restrain it. I will use this secret treasure to catch it. While the flying carriage was moving fast, Yi Xiong frowned, explaining the features of the Heaven Thunder Beast. Chapter 567, Shady Firmament Old Mound. Chapter 567, Shady Firmament Old Mound. There was a desolated plain in the north of Spirit Treasure Sect. This was a cold, dry area, without a single blade of grass. The ground there had many open cracks. This plain had countless burrows, like stars in the sky, which tunneled to the deep place underground. Gloomy, cold wind blew vaguely, chilling the bones. It could even intrude warriors' sea of consciousness, which could make people felt its eccentric features from deep inside the soul. Burrows with different sizes looked like quiet, but open mouths of demonic beasts. They were pitch black, and one couldn't see the mysteries inside. They looked quite dangerous. No one knows how those burrows were formed. They'd existed since this plain was discovered more than 10,000 years ago. This place was quite strange. There was no rain. Even if one stayed there for dozens of years, he would never see a drop of rain. According to rumors, this land was the tomb where the corpses of experts were buried in the antiquity time. Those mysterious and dangerous burrows drilled into that deep place underground, leading directly to the Shady Firmament Old Mound. After midnight, stars scattered in the sky, twinkling like fireflies. The wind howled over the gloomy, isolated plain, chilling to the bones. A streak of shining light zoomed over, suspending above the plain. Silhouettes landed one by one from the flying carriage at a giant burrow. All the caves in this area dug deep into the underground. Some are very menacing. One wrong step can bury you in this place forever, never to be rescued. Yi Xiong took a deep breath, explaining with a serious countenance. If you can't identify the direction and go there rashly, you may encounter some ancient barriers which will destroy both your body and soul. Be careful. It's unknown for how long the Shady Firmament Old Mound has existed. In the legends, this place has stood here since the antiquity time. Zhu Yi was serious, giving advice to Lin Ji, Luo Xiao, and Luo Ming. Later on, you can't act carelessly. Stay close to us. Once you're lost, don't move. Use the soundstone to call me. Lin Ji, Luo Xiao, and Luo Ming nodded slightly, seeming to be scared. Each warrior in the divine Great Land had heard about the eccentric, evil features of the Shady Firmament Old Mound. This plain had buried many experts. With one wrong step, the barriers would besiege them. Not many were lucky enough to escape. Yu Ying and Yun Xen were giving advice to Li Muyu and Bai Huiquan, asking them to be more alert. Shi Yan frowned as he felt the thick, cold wind pour into his body. His heart shivered. A cold wind was howling everywhere. No one knew how it was formed. However, this kind of wind had a strong penetration ability, as it could even blow to people's bones, which made the essence qi stagnant. Shi Yan quietly urged his energy, using a bit of the heat from the earth flame. A warm current flowed through his entire body. He was moved, as the cold, gloomy feeling was reduced by a great deal. Is it the entrance? Yu Ying's almond eyes lit up a little bit as she was looking at the big cave near her feet and asking with a soft voice. A cold gust blew through that cave entrance. It was completely dark. The wind was blowing here, and they're just like some ghosts crying, which could scare people a lot. Yes, it is. While Yi Xiong was talking, he took out an indigo elliptic light ball and shot it out. The light ball fell slowly, its color changing constantly. The deeper the light ball got into the cave, the darker the light was. Later on, the indigo light ball became glistening purple. The cold wind's too strong. Wait for a few minutes, we'll get in there. Yi Xiong was familiar with the situation here. He retrieved the light ball and then explained, cold wind will activate the barriers inside. As soon as the cold aura in there dilutes, the ancient barriers won't be activated. We should wait. In this delegation, Zhu Yi, Yu Ying, and Yun Shou seemed to have some understanding of the status of this shady firmament old mound. They nodded to agree with Yi Xiong's plan. This was the first time Shi Yan and the juniors came to the shady firmament old mound. They knew nothing about the anomalies here. Thus, they didn't have the right to give their opinions. They had to act as they were told. No need to be tense now, Zhu Yi smiled and said with a warm voice since he saw the atmosphere was heavy. If we don't get into the cave, there's nothing dangerous. Even if the cold gust out there is getting sharper, there's no barrier or fatal danger. Yi Ji has visited here once. He's explored the area. We just need to escort him there. Before we meet that beast, there should be no danger. When people heard him saying so, they relaxed their tense nerves a bit. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sound of bodies tearing through space came from a place far away, coming here with the cold wind. A surprised light flashed in Yi Xiong's eyes. He shouted, "Someone's coming." Shi Yan immediately put up guard. Zhu Yi exposed the hands he had kept hiding in the sleeves, which wore a lot of gem rings. Each ring was sparkling with amazing light in the dark. They were, of course, his secret treasures. Filthy rich, indeed. Shi Yan acclaimed in his heart. Each elder of the Spirit Treasure sect was wealthy. They had collected a lot of secret treasures from managing trading in their cities. Experts of the Spirit Treasure sect could rely just on the treasures to smash their opponents. And when the others lost, they wouldn't have even seen the full abilities of those elders. Their various treasures were clearly effective in increasing their competence. When they had more weapons or tools, they could have more backups during the fight. Sometimes, a battle could turn into a competition of burning money to see who had more treasures and medicines. People from the Spirit Treasure sect were famous for this aspect. They were good at this type of fighting. The howling wind ceased slowly. Zhu Yi closed his eyes as a fluctuating flow of his soul consciousness expanded from him, discreetly moving to the direction of the howling wind. Shi Yan knew he was sensing, so he just waited in silence. Indeed, 5 seconds later, Zhu Yi opened his eyes, his face amazed. Why have they come here? Who? Yuing inquired immediately. Lei Mo of Thunder Emperor City and Ai Po of White Emperor City, frowned Zhu Yi. Shi Yan arched his brows. His face slightly changed as his mind flickered. Lei Mo was the city master of the Thunder Emperor City of Fighting Union. Ai Po was Ai's father, the master of the White Emperor City. Both of them had the third sky of Spirit Realm cultivation base. They all liked fighting, which made them tough to deal with. It wasn't strange that the city masters of Thunder Emperor City and White Emperor City appeared at Shady Firmament Old Mound. What was strange was, why did they come at this moment? He couldn't help but look at Yi Xiong. It was obvious that Yi Xiong had hidden something from them. If not many experts would gather at the Shady Firmament Old Mound for only one Heaven Thunder Beast. According to Yi Xiong, hotshots from the Martial Spirit Palace and the Heaven Temple would come for this Heaven Thunder Beast, and that they were likely to meet them. But at this moment, people from Martial Spirit Palace and Heaven Temple hadn't come. Yet, the city masters of Fighting Union had appeared one step ahead. It should be something concealed. Yu Ying and Yun Shou knitted their brows. They didn't look pleased when they looked at Yi Xiong, waiting for his explanation. I'm inviting you here to deal with the Heaven Thunder Beast. You don't need to get involved in the other stuff. Yi Xiong relaxed his eyebrows, answering them neither slowly nor fast. Apparently, he didn't want to make things clear. He stated his opinions already, and the others couldn't do anything now. As they had come here, they could only be persistent, walking on the same path as his. Shi Yan suddenly recalled Aiya. He wondered if this woman would come here too. When they were in the dark magnetic noxious mist, this woman had trapped him once. If he weren't smart enough, he would have been killed. In the first exotic land, Aiya took the lead and stormed to the intertwining galaxies in the sky. He didn't know what had happened there. When he got up there, she had disappeared. He had the feeling that Aiya had collected something there. After he arrived the Divine Great Land, he had met up with Kai. She told him that Aiya had come back to the White Emperor City, and not long after that, she had a breakthrough and started to grow rapidly. Kaya was the precious pearl in AI Po's hand. He really loved his daughter. If AI Po came to the shady Firmament Old Mound this time, he would probably bring her with him. Upon his thought, Shiryen wanted to release the soul consciousness to sense. However, right when was about to take action, he felt a sense of soul fluctuation discreetly move above their head. When his soul consciousness was released, he shivered under that soul fluctuation. When he recovered and wanted to pursue it, it had already disappeared into thin air. The place where the howling wind came didn't have any trace of soul fluctuations. It seemed the other had used some means to conceal their aura and soul fluctuations to prevent their sneaking. They detected us. Ju-yi squinted his eyes and snorted, stealthy. They hid their aura. Harumph. Do they think that I can't do the same? Then, an emerald ring on his finger sparkled. Green waves covered everybody instantly like an upside-down bowl. This is a treasure in soul-concealing category. Waves of this green light prevented soul consciousness from piercing through. It covered their vitality fluctuations and aura, exposing nothing that could help identify their whereabouts. Yi Xiong started to sense the change of the cave again. The light ball floated up and down for a while, but the purple halo didn't have any big change. Yi Xiong's eyes brightened up. He laughed quietly. All right, we can jump down. Then, Yi Xiong was the first person flying towards that cave. While he was slowly descending, he reminded the others. Everybody should slow down. Don't rush. Stay close to each other. Let's go, Ju-yi nodded. He swung his hand as a tender energy covered Luo Xiao, Luo Meng, and Lin Ji entirely. They slowly sunk down. Yu Ying and Yun Xiu followed them. Shiryen was the last one leaving. He was very cautious. Thousands of li away, a group of 6, including Lei Mo and AI Pa, was seen standing in front of a cave, frowning. AI, the one Shiryen had just recalled, was here. A young man with a tough and stocky build stood next to her. This man had a pure smile, and he seemed to have a close relationship with Aya. Aya beamed a weak smile from the corner of her mouth while talking cheerfully with that young man. Perhaps she had forgotten Shiryen, whom she had met in the dark magnetic noxious mist. Also, she had never thought that she would meet an old friend who was 1,000 miles away from her in this ancient burial mound. Not much different, Lei Mo laughed, looking at the cave. We shall go. Yi Xiong and the others seem to have the same purpose as us. We shouldn't let them arrive earlier than us. AI Po is really handsome. He nodded, yeah, we should hurry up. This group then slowly jumped into the cave. Chapter 568, The Subterranean World. Chapter 568, The Subterranean World. Shiryen followed Yi Xiong through the entrance to the cave. The soil wall surrounding them had no source of light. The moonlight in the sky couldn't shine to this place, either. This cave was gloomy, with a cold gust blowing through. The deeper they went, the colder and sharper the wind got. The cold wind chilled people to their bones. The wind seemed to be able to blow through Warrior's sea of consciousness, which could freeze the soul as well. Shiryen had the flaming power of the earth flame moving in him, which helped him neutralize the cold wind and maintain his sound mind. Yi Xiong, Ju-yi, Yu Ying, and Yun Xiu were warriors with a profound attainment. This kind of a strong, cold wind didn't trouble them much. On the other side, the juniors, including Luo Xiao and Li Muyu, couldn't endure. They were shivering, their bodies chilled. Yi Xiong and the others didn't try to protect them. From their point of view, Ju-yi, Yu Ying, and Yun Xiu thought that the cold gust in the cave entrance wasn't too fierce. It was good enough to train their disciples. They took Lin Ji, Li Muyu, Bai Huiquan, Luo Xiao, and Luo Meng here to make them adapt to the conditions of the shady Firmament Old Mound, using dangers to stimulate them. Danger and risk could increase the warrior's realm fast. To resist the erosive power of the cold wind, they needed to use both of their will and energy. This was a good chance to practice. Ju-yi didn't take action. Lin Ji and the others were moving inside the ill-lit cave. Sometimes, they could hear the noise from their teeth chattering. The cold wind had them freezing. Shiryen maintained his slow speed, his face calm. He squinted his eyes, putting up his guard. Yi Xiong was in the front. Certainly, he was familiar with this place. Along the way, he continually told them the directions and what to avoid. After 2 hours, Yi Xiong suddenly shouted curtly, "Everybody, stay alert. We're about to get there." Everybody was struck. Yan's eyes brightened a little bit as he was secretly astonished, observing everywhere. He discreetly released his soul consciousness. There was no fluctuation of life underground, but the aura here is strangely changing. Great danger seemed to hide somewhere. An immense white light emitted under their feet, which lit up the gloomy cave a little bit. Under the white light, Yan suddenly found that Bai Huiquan was too close to him, as if she intended to shorten the distance between them. A fresh and sweet fragrance like orchid emitted from the little girl. Yan exhaled gently. He knitted his brows as if he were surprised, looking at the girl. Under the immense white light, Bai Huiquan's small face showed that she was scared. The girl then shyly spoke to him with a soft voice. "It's warmer near you." I just want to borrow some warmth." Yan got it immediately. When he was using the heating energy of the earth flame, a warm aura flowed out from him, which increased the temperature around his body. Cold gusts constantly blew through the cave, bringing the chill air which could make their bones shiver. But the aura of the flame could ease the bitter cold. Bai Huiquan stayed close to him to reduce the irritating feeling on her body as much as possible, to prevent consuming too much essence qi to resist the cold wind. Yan smiled and nodded to her. "As you wish." "Thank you." Bai Huiquan stuck her tongue out, giving him a sincere thanks. "You're a good guy. You aren't like someone people can't stand," as Sister Muyu said. Yan wore some black stripes on his face, looking at Li Muyu from a distance. He then asked with a low voice, "How did that woman slander me?" Bai Huiquan chuckled. She purses her lips as her eyes squinted to a new moon. "I don't dare to say. Otherwise, Sister Muyu will not forgive me. You will hate me too." Means there's no good word. Yan forced a smile, shaking his head. "I have never known her before. I don't know why she has a hostile attitude towards me. It's inexplicable." "You don't know that?" muttered Bai Huiquan. "You know something?" Yan was astounded. "Muyu Jie likes you low. But it's a secret. Now, you've joined the God sect, and you could replace the Son of God position of his. Among the chosen ones in the secret territory, perhaps you can take her rank too. At that time, she won't give you a good face." Bai Huiquan secretly checked Li Muyu. When she found that the woman didn't watch over this area, she explained him briefly with her soft voice. Yan was surprised. "Oh, that's it. How about you? Do you have the same thoughts as her?" "I won't be like her," Bai Huiquan squinted. She harumphed. "Yulu isn't honest. I don't like him. Even if he didn't come to the secret territory for ranking, it would not be my turn yet. I won't have a bad feeling about you because of this ranking thing. Anyway, my teacher said that you're a pervert. She told me to stay away from you as far as possible. And don't let you take advantage of me." Yan's eyes were strange, as he coldly glared at Yun Xiu far from him, then snorted, "It seems all women gossip." Bai Huiquan smiled unceasingly, her body closer to his, using the higher temperature emitting from him to minimize the effect of the freezing wind. Yu Ning and Yun Xiu were flying together. They didn't notice Yan. These two girls seemed to use some kind of code to talk, their eyes sometimes cold and sometimes bright. Yi Xiong and Zhu Yi flew together. They landed first. It turned out that the deep place under the isolated plain was a fairy world. This subterranean area was like another world in the core of the earth. It was dark, humid, and wet. Many pale mushrooms were growing from the ground. These mushrooms had some tiny black spots. They were radiating immense white light, which supported their vision in this area. This earth core world had a lot of peculiar flora. Each kind of plant here had a heavy yin qi, and they were as firm as iron, as if molded with molten iron. Fractions of white bones lay like withered plants for years, scattering everywhere. They could see some white skulls here and there, under the shades of those peculiar trees. With a more careful look, they saw many graves. Some of them were dug out, and they could see the coffin inside. Those are phosphorus ghost mushrooms. They're the main lighting flora underground. Thanks to them, our vision here is good enough. However, what you need to watch out the most is the phosphorus ghost mushroom. These things have absorbed the phosphorescent flame from the decomposed corpses. They have the corpse toxins. If you stay close to it, it will spray the toxin out. This way, it can kill more people to take the phosphorescent flame from the decomposing bodies. Yi Xiong waited until everybody landed next to him to introduce the general situation of this subterranean world. This section of burial mound is dug up already. They took all funerary objects. The graves that haven't been violated should have hidden dangers. Everybody should stay far from them. Or else, you wouldn't know how you died. Yi Xiong continued to explain. Is this the Shady Firmament old mound? Shi Yan felt the dense yin qi as he asked. This place had abundant yin qi, pretty similar to the Sound Beast Mountain in the abandoned place. However, this place had a menacing cold gust that kept howling unceasingly. They seemed to be very dangerous. The ambience here was somehow extremely evil. People who stood here always had an unknown, but terrifying feeling swelling in their hearts. Yeah, Yi Xiong nodded, then continued seriously, to be exact. This place is a corner of the Shady Firmament old mound, which is still pretty far from the real tomb. Anyway, don't worry. Our destination isn't the most dangerous place in the Shady Firmament old mound. It's easy to get there. Having heard him say so, Shi Yan could relax a bit. Yi Xiong put on a serious countenance and continued his introduction of the Shady Firmament old mound's dangers and changes. After that, he said, everybody just needs to follow me. Before we get there, I'm sure there will be no sudden events. Later, please maintain a proper distance. Pay attention to my position. Everybody nodded, then Yi Xiong led the way. He avoided the phosphorus ghost mushrooms, swaying like a shuttle through those rigid plants. His pace was fast as he was ignoring the skeletons here and there. Shi Yan followed him nonchalantly. Along the way, he released his soul consciousness, but didn't find any fluctuation of life. He could confirm that there were no living creatures in the surrounding areas. When the phosphorus ghost mushrooms found someone near them, these pale things with black dots, which looked more like pimples, would exude something viscous with an extremely unpleasant smell. When it stormed to people's nostrils, of course, it brought along the toxin. However, the distance that phosphorus ghost mushrooms could spray the corpse toxin to was limited. As long as they kept a proper distance from them, those mushrooms wouldn't start their attack. Yi Xiong understood the nature of the mushroom well. He had set up a precise distance which everybody followed to stay away from the attack range of the phosphorus ghost mushrooms. The open graves exposed the empty coffins inside. Funerary objects had been soon taken. According to Yi Xiong, people who were buried there were all warriors from many previous generations. Their funerary objects were excellent. Unfortunately, tomb raiders who had come here to collect the materials had cleaned up the tombs that they could touch really long time ago. Looking at those empty graves, Shi Yan frowned, his face heavy. No matter how strong a warrior was, when he died, he would eventually turn into a dry skeleton unless he had reached the true god realm. At that time, his soul would become the god soul. Even if his body vanished, his soul would remain. As long as no soul technique or treasures attacked that god soul, it could escape easily. Then, it could find another body to refine or enter the womb of a pregnant woman to be reborn in a newborn baby form. These two methods had the same meaning, which was to resurrect with a different body. And only the true God Realm warriors could do these steps. They were almost immortal. Looking at the open graves around him, Shi Yan was firmly determined to set himself to chase the stronger realms. Shi Yan, come here, Ying suddenly called out, her face still cold as usual. Shi Yan was bewildered. He turned around to see her, and after hesitating for a while, he walked towards her. Elder Yu, what do you want to advise? Remember the Big Dipper God Arrow book I gave you? How's your practice? Her manner was like she was testing her student. She lifted her head, her face solemn. Not bad, Shi Yan replied nonchalantly. Show me one type. When Flaming Sun, Silver Moon, and Star techniques of the Radiant God sect are combined together at the crucial time, the power will rocket. We possibly have to control the Heaven Thunder Beast. At that time, your Big Dipper God Arrow can contribute a bit. Show me, then I can know how can we cooperate to control the Heaven Thunder Beast, said Yu Ying deliberately. Shi Yan's heart bounced. His Big Dipper God arrow was complete. However, the 7 stars of the Big Dipper in his heart had the flaming sun power. Once he performed the Big Dipper God arrow, the miraculous sun power fusion would be exposed. When Yuanhao took him to the sect, he had advised him not to let any other disciples know that he could fuse the sun power. And now Yu Ying wanted to test him. Unless he didn't use the Big Dipper God arrow, his secret would be revealed. Shi Yan felt a headache coming. Chapter 569, Unforeseen Event Arises. Chapter 569, Unforeseen Event Arises. I haven't mastered it yet. I don't want to embarrass myself. Shi Yan mused for a while and then smiled, shaking his head to deny. Yu Ying and Yan Xiao weren't so surprised. It was as what they had anticipated. Yu Ying had given him the Big Dipper God arrow for 20 days. It wasn't easy to learn the technique thoroughly in just a short time. When Yu Lu had just joined the sect, it took him at least 3 months to learn a new secret technique. It had been just 20 days. Even if Shi Yan were a genius, he couldn't master it that quick. Yu Ying relaxed her nerves as she thought that this boy's innate endowment wasn't that earth-shaking. It should be good, though. When the secret territory opened, perhaps Mu could replace him to claim a decent rank. Then, Yu Ying felt happy secretly. Then, you don't need to try. If we encounter danger in this trip, for us coming from the same sect, we won't just watch. You should be cautious yourself, too. You should always be careful, nodded Yu Ying. Shi Yan just smiled. Yi Xiong and Zhu Yi were walking in the front of the formation, so they didn't notice the convo between Yu Ying and Shi Yan. Phosphorus ghost mushrooms filled the ground. Yi Xiong's pace slowed down, seeming like he had found something beyond his estimation. Zhu Yi was careful, waves of soul consciousness still rippling from him. It seemed he was always using the soul consciousness to sense any changes happening. Shi Yan exhaled in relief as he could dodge Yu Ying's testing. He stayed away from Yu Ying and Yun Xiao, and gradually, he approached Yi Xiong. They slowly went forward, but when they reached a ruined tomb, Yi Xiong changed his visage. Shi Yan was shaken inside, but his eyes brightened up. The graveyard ahead of them was packed. It was almost one grave after another within 100 meters. Those graves were intact and hadn't been damaged. They were preserved well. Scattered here, and there were piles of ancient warriors' seas of consciousness. They were weathered with time, looking vulnerable. There were many cultivating materials too. After so many years, they had lost their spiritual qi, hence no beam of energy could be seen. Whatever material it was, it couldn't survive time. Moreover, the wind howled through this place year-round, which accelerated the erosion. Yi Xiong stood in front of an entrance of a tomb, frowning in his thoughts. He seemed to have found something. Shi Yan didn't want to bother him. He also knitted his brows, waiting in silence. It's a little bit different. Yi Xiong lowered his voice, talking to Zhu Yi standing next to him. Last time I was here, this area was covered with some kind of energy. But now, Yi Xiong shook his head. Someone has come here. Zhu Yi was surprised. People from Martial Spirit Palace or Heaven Temple? I'm not sure. Yi Xiong took out a Yin mine, throwing it away. The Yin mine flashed with a blue electric light and then exploded in that tomb. Boom, boom, boom. It was like thunder igniting earth flame. Explosions reverberated continually from the tomb ahead of them. Then, they saw the sealed graves were shaken a little bit. Strange light spread out immensely from the graves, creating a scattering layer of strange energy. Glistening beams of light connected to each other, but they were all different, with extremely robust energy. Shortly, waves of energy condensed and then expanded, covering Shi Yan's group entirely. Just like a hallucination, scenes of the bottom of the ocean appeared at the center of each grave. Fishes were swimming deliberately everywhere. Not good. Yi Xiong's countenance changed dramatically. His hands constantly formed different imprints, as the rings on his fingers sparkled shiningly. Treasures flew out one by one, zooming over here and there inside the sea scenario in the middle of the graveyard. Those treasures looked like needles and knives, with different shapes and sizes. All of them had a strong sensing ability. The ocean illusion wasn't broken. The fishes there weren't affected by the treasures and continued swimming. Those fishes suddenly sped up. They aimed at Yi Xiong, flashed once, and then disappeared into his body. Yi Xiong seemed to get hit badly. His body trembled as divine light sparkled in his eyes while the energy in his body was urged in silence. Watch out! The barriers here are activated. Each fish will aim for your sea of consciousness. Zhu Yi shouted and swung his arm to strike out an attack. He immediately pulled Luo Xiao, Luo Meng, and Lin Ji to his front. An azure gauze, which was decorated with many thumb-sized gems that were full of torrential soul energy, covering the three of Luo Xiao's group. When the fishes touched that bluish veil, they sizzled and then dissolved. Yu Ying and Yun Xiu weren't hesitant, taking out the soul treasures in their storage rings and covering themselves and their apprentices from the strange, evil energy of those fishes. Nobody cared about Shiryan. Those swimming fish seemed to be revived, swamping over Shiryan at lightning speed. Those fishes weren't too big, just arm length with a dark green body. Tentacles jutted out from their mouths, and their narrow eyes sparkled maliciously. They swarmed over, entering Shiryan's body and intruding his sea of consciousness. All of a sudden, more than 10 fishes were moving in Shiryan's sea of consciousness. As soon as they got in there, they started to nibble and tear Shiryan's soul consciousness. A furious headache arose, as if it wanted to crack his head. Shiryan was terrified. Those fishes could swallow his soul consciousness. More than 10 fishes were moving in his soul consciousness. His soul consciousness was consumed fast, becoming the nutrients for those fish. Soul objects. Shiryan discolored. He didn't have to think more, and immediately urged the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame. Flows of heaven flame flew out from the third eye of his host's soul, which found and destroyed the fishes precisely. The 5 devils had returned to his sea of consciousness when he was in the Dead Soul Mountain range. They seemed to have sensed the danger, flying out from their place deep in the sea of consciousness to face the fishes. The negative 5 devils were good at dealing with soul objects. They were like beasts seeing blood and fresh meat, storming forward and swallowing the fishes. The fish dissipated quickly. Shiryan's soul consciousness was hurt. Right after that, he pulled himself together and assessed the surroundings while frowning. Yi Xiong, Zhu Yi, Yu Ying, and Yun Xiu all had soul-class defensive treasures which kept the fishes from touching them. All were safe. Only Shiryan stood upright in the sky packed with swimming fishes. They targeted him, attacking him like a cloud of grasshoppers. The young man was calm. He wasn't scared, opening his mind to release the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame. With the 5 devils, he quickly destroyed the fishes entering his sea of consciousness at a fast speed. Within 5 breaths, half of the school of 100 fishes was burned off, and the 5 devils swallowed the other half. The other fishes seemed to realize that their kind was destroyed rapidly. They thus didn't dare to approach Shiryan, avoiding him disorderly. Yi Xiong and the others looked at him with astonishment. The 4 of them had an exquisite cultivation base. Just at first glance, they could see that Shiryan didn't use any treasures, but the fish were trying to avoid him. Soul's secret techniques. The 4 of them were filled with suspicions. They were astounded that Shiryan had even more secrets which they hadn't explored yet. Lin Ji, Luo Meng, and Luo Xiao were even more startled. They felt that Shiryan was really bizarre. He didn't use any treasures of soul category, but he could still stop such an intimidating attack. It wasn't that simple. The 5 devils didn't want to wait passively like that. Without Shiryan's advice, they changed and stormed out, flying around him. After the 5 devils had formed their shapes, each of them looked as ferocious and terrible as ghosts and demons from hell. The fishes seemed to have encountered their nemesis, avoiding him in panic. The 5 devils captured the slower ones, devouring them all. In demons. Zhu Yi was scared, and couldn't help but scream out curtly. Light burned in his eyes. There were many kinds of techniques to train the In demons. Usually, they were all evil and sinister. Warriors who trained the In demons had to collect the evil In Qi in some extremely dangerous places. In the divine Great Land, there weren't many factions who understood how to train demons. The Devil Valley was one of the famous factions who could do that. 36 terminating caves of the Devil Valley were good places to train demons. After the demons were formed, warriors would keep them and nurture them in their sea of consciousness. During a battle, demons could use sinister soul techniques to create marvelous effects. According to rumors, the strongest demon could claim the land of the antiquity Demogorgon during its unceasing upgrading process. People said that each demon carried a beam of the Demogorgon's broken soul. When the demon thrived to an intimidatingly strong level, that soul would be wakened. At that time, the demon would become the Demogorgon, which would be really formidable. However, even the Devil Valley, the faction which understood how to train the demons, had never heard about directly awakening the Demogorgon through the demon's level up. The 5 devils that shot out from Shurian's body had a half-solid form, their appearance ferocious and intimidating. They had the primitive form of the antiquity Demogorgon. Their aura was evil and eccentric, which was not ordinary at all. Yu Ying and Yun Xiao exchanged looks. They could see the fear in each other's eyes. Shurian was the one Yun Hao had introduced to join the sect. He had star martial spirit, so he was considered a member of the Radiant God cult. But how did he know the technique to training demons? Perhaps he had a connection with the Devil Valley. 5 devils were screaming, flying around to search for their delicious food. They were excitedly releasing a thick murderous aura that made people shiver. All swimming fishes started to jump into the closed graves at the fastest speed. They didn't dare to show up anymore. Each tomb had a strange energy that protected them naturally. After the fishes entered, the 5 devils couldn't do anything to harm them. They circled around for a while, then unwillingly returned to Shurian's sea of consciousness. When the 5 devils got in his sea of consciousness, they calmed down and sunk into it to digest the nutrients they had just enjoyed. Shurian was surprised. He shook his head and then beamed a faint smile. Looking at the astounded appearances of Yi Xiong and the other, he inquired, "Can we move now?" Yi Xiong nodded with a strange complexion. "Yeah, but we have to be more careful. We've just encountered a dangerous situation, so I think it should be something else ahead of us. Didn't you say that before we meet the Heaven Thunder Beast, we would have a smooth go?" Shurian frowned. Yi Xiong smiled embarrassedly. "It should have been. But I'm not sure now. Someone got in here before. Seems they have activated the barriers." Shurian snorted. He didn't like indefinite factors. He thought this trip wouldn't be so strenuous, with neither surprises nor dangers. But now, they seemed to have a lot of events at hand, which was obviously out of Yi Xiong's plan. Also, this meant the other part of their trip would be more surprising. Yi Xiong beamed a wry smile. He didn't dare to wait for another question, and immediately accelerated, walking straight ahead. Although Yu Ying and Yun Xiao weren't pleased, as things had come to this point, they could only follow him in silence. In the dark, they kept reminding their apprentices to be more careful. Chapter 570, The Ancient Cave Mansion. Chapter 570, The Ancient Cave Mansion. At the entrance of a broken tomb deep underground stood around 10 warriors of the Martial Spirit Palace and Heaven Temple. They looked dispirited. It was an area of blended light above their heads. Countless energy light columns, which were really sharp and vicious, were slaughtering everywhere. All flows of energy around were dragged into these light columns. Willpower that wanted to destroy people's souls was circling this group of warriors, moving without ceasing. This group of warriors of the Martial Spirit Palace and the Heaven Temple was surrounding a young maid. This girl had an average appearance, but her eyes were filled with starlight. White and gray spots sparkled from deep inside the girl's pupils. She narrowed her eyes while sensing every change happening around them. She seemed to be able to feel the directions of each energy beam. Long afterward, the girl paled. She had consumed much of her soul consciousness, due to which the light in her eyes dimmed. "I have the direction." The young maid slowly got up, speaking solemnly. "Stay close to me. Never let yourself separate." Some third sky of spirit realm experts were shaken on listening to her, their faces both surprised and happy. We've stirred up the barriers and it cost much of our effort. Anyway, it helps obstruct the others. A third Sky of Spirit Realm warrior sneered. I saw Yi Xiong and his people, but they have no hope to reach the target now. The barriers we've crossed are enough to kill all of them. Yeah, without little Ling, even if we have a profound cultivation base, we don't know how to solve the barriers. We would die soon, exclaimed another person. This group included warriors from the Martial Spirit Palace and Heaven Temple. They had accidentally activated the barriers. Along the way to get here, they had encountered many traps and dangers. If that girl didn't have a miraculous martial spirit and a profound knowledge of the ancient formations, they would have been killed earlier. Thinking about the perils they had met along the way, they all still felt scared. We won't meet the people of the Spirit Treasure Sect, the girl beamed a faint smile. If they don't know how to solve the barriers we've crossed, they will be killed soon. If they're persistent, their souls will perish. Perhaps they will become a part of the magical formation, turning into the Een ghosts. Everybody was frightened. We should go. Be careful and listen to my direction. The young maid was tense. She took a deep breath and then took the lead. Everyone else followed her closely. Yi Xiong halted. He was terrified, looking at the ruins while screaming, "Not good." Shiryan, Zhu Yiying, and Yun Xiu strode to him. In front of Yi Xiong was a dark area. In the dark, the wind was strong and sharp, just like numerous sabers and swords flying and dancing in the void. In that dark area, a big peril seemed to be hiding. The soul consciousness they released sank like a stone in the sea. As a result, they couldn't sense anything. From that cold wind area, thick murderous aura slapped their faces, as if it were hiding an ancient beast that was waiting for its prey. It's the dreadful formation. Yi Xiong took a deep breath. Someone has activated all the dreadful formations on this route. It's tough now. If we want to go there, we can only jump in. The dreadful formation was the magical formations that contained a lot of dangers, along with many hidden terrible changes, which could burn the warriors into ashes instantly. Which degree are these dreadful formations? Zhu Yi darkened his face, frowning. Enough to kill warriors at our level. Yi Xiong turned his head to see the other, his face desperate. From this situation, I think we should end our trip earlier. Yu Ying and Yun Xiu arched their exquisite eyebrows, looking at the dark area ahead of them, their hearts bitter. These two women had come to the Shady Firmament Old Mound understanding the dangerous features of this area well. Once the dreadful formations were activated, perils would appear instantly. If they stepped in there rashly, it meant they were prepared to die. As they could predict there were many layers of dreadful formations ahead, Yu Ying and Yun Xiu decided to retreat. They would stop here. Is there any other way around? Bai Huiquan asked with fear. Yun Xiu threw her a glance and answered softly, unless we have a formation master who understands the dreadful formations, or we have enough power to clean up the area. However, I can see that even the old monsters in their peak realm in the divine Great Land can't forcibly crush those dreadful formations. Saying so, she meant their hope had basically vanished. I don't want it. Yi Xiong screamed with a hoarse voice, his eyes red. Who has activated the dreadful formation? I want him to live in misery. Mo Linger of the Martial Spirit Palace. I heard that she knows how to break the formations. Her attainment in this aspect's really profound. The whole Martial Spirit Palace has to admire her, Ying twittered with her soft voice. Yi Xiong's eyes brightened as he shouted all of a sudden. It's them. They have absolutely tricked us. They must have taken Mo Linger with them. That's why they dare to activate the dreadful formations. They want to block our road. For just a Heaven Thunder Beast, is it worth such a big arrangement? Yun Xiu was stunned. Yi Xiong just snorted and didn't comment on that. Zhu Yi assessed the situation quietly. He could confirm that what Yi Xiong wanted wasn't only the Heaven Thunder Beast. This Shady Firmament Old Mound should have something that all these people desired. What it could be? Shiryan rubbed his chin while thinking. Yi Xiong was the elder of the Spirit Treasure Sect, so he should have many secret treasures. He was filthy rich. Ordinary items couldn't get into his vision. It should be a very precious treasure. Precursor Yi, Did you find something in this shady firmament old mound? Shiryen smiled. Now that we aren't going there, would you mind telling us about that? Just consider it our payment. Yu Ying and Yunshou gazed at him without blinking. Everybody was curious. They thought that it should be something special in this shady firmament old mound that drew the attention of many hotshots risking their lives. Ancient cave mansion. Yi Xiong mused for a while, then slowly spit out 3 words. Everybody was frightened. The ancient cave mansion was the cultivating mansion of warriors in the antiquity time. It should have ancient cultivating materials and books, including martial techniques and rare treasures. Perhaps it still kept the divine weapons. The 7 ancient factions had been established a long time ago. Through countless generations, many cultivating techniques had been lost, and so had the tremendous secret treasures. The inheritance the 7 ancient factions had today was incomplete. However, even if it were incomplete, the 7 ancient factions were still the ones who took the wheel of the divine great land. An ancient cave mansion could be a sect in the old times. And perhaps it could preserve secret cultivating techniques and treasures. If it were explored, it would change the whole structure of the divine great land. Shiryen was stunned as he started to think more about it. Was that the ancestors' land of the demonic Sound clan? According to the demonic Sound clan, their ancestors' land was in the shady firmament old mound, where the canon, In symbol scripture, and the treasures from the antiquity time were kept. One of the reasons why Tian Emma wanted to follow Shiryen was the hope that one day, they could return to their ancestors' land and find their inheritance. You found it? Shiryen was stirred up. The Heaven Thunder Beast did. It seemed to have run away from the cave mansion. In that cave mansion, I'm not sure about the other things, but the world-extinguishing thunder flame is surely there, answered Yi Xiong. World-extinguishing thunder flame? Even Ju Yi couldn't hold on, shouting, Old Yi, you lied to me. Are you saying that this cave mansion has the world-extinguishing thunder flame? The second rank among the 9 types of heaven flames? Yu Ying and Yun Xiu had their eyes brightened. Shiryen put on a terrified countenance. Among the 9 types of heaven flames, the world-extinguishing thunder flame ranked the second, 1 grade higher than the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame. According to the rumors, the world-extinguishing thunder flame was born in the immemorial epoch. The immemorial epoch was even older than the antiquity time. In that era, mankind hadn't even come into existence yet. According to the legend, during the immemorial epoch, many strong living beings had been fighting against each other, leading to the great change of the earth and firmament. From the 9 heavens, trillions of thunder and lightning had been struck out. Among that countless number of lightning, there was one beam that had a life consciousness. It then absorbed the other lightning strikes and eventually became the world-distinguishing thunder flame, which could generate trillions of lightning beams to destroy the whole world. The second-ranked heaven flame from the immemorial epoch with the world-destroying power. Shiryen couldn't control his breathing from becoming short and quick. Too bad. It's too bad. Why do we have such bad luck? Ju Yi wore a displeased countenance as his eyes reddened. He clenched his jaw. Yi Xiong, why didn't you tell us earlier? If you told me early, even if I had to lose my face, I would try my best to invite an expert to deal with the dangerous formations. Now, we can't do anything. Yi Xiong didn't even have the mood to feel shame. He just shook his head continually. He wanted to conceal this secret to enjoy it for himself. But now, someone else had got involved and arranged the traps, and they couldn't even get in there. Yu Ying and Yun Xiu couldn't press down their hurry. Looking at the dark area ahead of them, they were thinking quickly to choose whether they wanted to risk their lives and storm in there or not. Of course, the enticement of the world-extinguishing thunder flame and the ancient cave mansion was much bigger than the Heaven Thunder Beast. First, give me the ethereal crystal. However, Shiryen suddenly spoke up at this moment. He calmly looked at Yi Xiong. Yi Xiong gawked. He got enraged. You haven't contributed anything. How dare you ask for the ethereal crystal? Don't mess with me now. Otherwise, don't blame me for not having manners. Ju Yi, Yu Ying, Yun Xiu all looked at Shiryen with odd complexions. Give me the ethereal crystal first. I'll take you guys through these ancient barriers. Do you think it's a good deal? Shiryen cracked a smile. Yi Xiong and the others were struck, their faces disbelieving. They all knew about the perils of these barriers. Let alone Shi Yan's first Sky of Spirit Realm cultivation vase. Even if he had reached the true God realm, if he didn't know how to break a formation, he had no possible solution. What did he depend on? Little friend, are you serious? Zhu Yi's eyes were sparkling like lightning. He took a deep breath, then asked. I'm serious, Shi Yan grinned. Don't worry. When I get the ethereal crystal, I'll demonstrate. So, do you want to consider this deal? Yi Xiong was bewildered. He kept silent for a long time and then asked, how can I believe you? Haha, I'm staying here, right? If I can't do that, you can take the crystals back. Shi Yan was calm, looking at Zhu Yi and Yuing. You have witnesses. I won't mess up. You can ease your mind. Old Yi, never mind true or false, it's not bad. Just let him try. Zhu Yi was hurried. He knew Shi Yan had many strange things. If he had the confidence to say so, of course, he had something he could rely on. Although he didn't know what Shi Yan had, he thought they should give it a try. Give him the ethereal crystal. Yu Ying and Yun Shou urged. Lin Ji, Luo Xiao, Luo Meng, and Bai Huiquan were gazing at Shi Yan with sparkling eyes. Chapter 571. Push through shoving and bumping. Chapter 571. Push through shoving and bumping. Yi Xiong reluctantly gave Shi Yan an ethereal crystal under the urging of Zhu Yi, Yu Ying, and Yun Xiu. A small pile of silver ethereal crystal was shining, with many cracks on the crystal surface. Space power vaguely moved there. These fist-sized crystals had conical and diamond shapes. They were heavier than they looked. Ethereal crystals, the fundamental element of teleportation formations. When one pours energy into the ethereal crystal, it can urge space power. Yi Xiong's face was bitter. I had ruined an old, shabby teleportation formation in an old place to take these crystals. If you don't know how to use it, you should choose another thing to exchange. Shi Yan chuckled and then stashed away the ethereal crystals. He glared at Yi Xiong. You don't need to mind me. He didn't check the ethereal crystal because he knew Yi Xiong wouldn't cheat him at this moment. These ethereal crystals contained weak space power, which he could sense. So, they shouldn't be counterfeit. You got the ethereal crystals. You should do something now, right? Yi Xiong rolled his eyes, urging coldly. Zhu Yi, Yu Ying, and Yun Xiu were stunned, their eyes as bright as a torch. The atmosphere at the dark area in front of them was strange and somehow evil. It seemed to hide a big danger, which were obviously the ancient barriers, extremely dreadful. Even Yi Xiong didn't dare to break in rashly. They had wanted to retreat, which showed the life-threatening characteristics of the dreadful formations. As Shi Yan had the ethereal crystals, he nodded and smiled. Don't worry, I'll take you there safely. Then, he summoned the sky-breaking shuttle. The sky-breaking shuttle screamed out loud when it got out, floating in front of him. It shot out a strange light, breaking the thick darkness ahead of them. It was surveying. Shi Yan wasn't hurried, waiting in silence. The sky-breaking shuttle was a strange tool to break the barriers. No barrier could restrain the shuttle. As he had such a treasure, Shi Yan dared to ask Yi Xiong to give him ethereal crystal. Yi Xiong, Zhu Yi, and the other had their eyes brightened, looking at the sky-breaking shuttle with astonishment. The shuttle emitted a strange energy that was surging spirally, slowly drilling into the dark area ahead of them. Not long after that, the sky-breaking shuttle sent him its thought. It will consume 1/4 of your essence chi to cross through the barrier ahead. Shi Yan nodded, pouring his essence chi into the sky-breaking shuttle. The sky-breaking shuttle sparkled. A massive light column tore the space, thrusting deep into the darkness. Waves of energy intertwined the inside of the light column, preventing all the attacking energies, which kept the space inside the light column safe. Shi Yan took the lead and stepped into the light column. Then, he turned around, waving at Yi Xiong's group. Yi Xiong's group was astounded, their faces changed. Shi Yan didn't lie to them. He did have a solution. The sky-breaking shuttle had created a light tunnel, which had a thick energy wall to prevent all kinds of energies from barge in. It stirred the ancient formations in the dark area. Constant explosions, sounds of violent impact, and thunder, lightning continually reverberated from that area. However, Shiryen was walking safely in the light tunnel. He didn't mind the chaotic situation underneath and just walked with a smile. Go! Ju-yi let out a slight shout, his face happy. This kid isn't ordinary. We can count on him later. Yi-ji, you should form a close relationship with him. Yi-xiong constantly nodded, his face overjoyed. Ethereal crystal was of course precious, but it was nothing compared to the ancient cave mansion and the world-extinguishing thunder flame. If he could get what he wanted, the harvest this time was enough to cover his current loss. The beautiful eyes of Yu-ing and Yun-shou shone sparklingly as they were discreetly assessing Shiryen, their hearts filled with astonishment. It was as if they had met Shiryen for the first time. They had silently appraised Shiryen in awe. They sighed due to the strange competence Shiryen had brought forth. The sky-breaking shuttle was beyond their imagination. This made them realize that Shiryen had hidden many mysteries. All of a sudden, Yu-ing and Yun-shou couldn't help but compliment Yun-hao's bright vision as he could recruit a man like this to the Radiant God cult. Hurry up! Shiryen saw they were worrying and didn't move, so he impatiently urged them the second time. I have to consume a lot of power to maintain the tunnel. Don't linger, okay? If I have to spend more time maintaining this tunnel, it will take more time to break the next barrier. Then, they didn't dare to hesitate furthermore, all jumping onto the light road. This light road shot straight, just like a sharp sword covering the territory. People glided fast, without minding the changes of the barriers around. Soon, they had crossed the barriers. Standing in the middle of a new graveyard, Yi-xiong sighed in relief. However, he had to change his face before he could have time to say something. Ahead of them was an immense area covered with thick mist. Sounds of water running came over. The water didn't flow fast, but it had a malignant aura. They could vaguely see the water monsters moving there, as if they were waiting for something. A flow of malicious aura exuded from the running stream, entering the body and restraining the soul. Another dreadful barrier. Yi-xiong was embarrassed, looking at Shiryen with a forced smile. People who came out from the prohibited area all looked at the area ahead, then tacitly shut their mouths, waiting for Shiryen with longing faces. Under their attentive looks, Shiryen said with a begrudging complexion, "Got it. I'll handle it." He used the sky-breaking shuttle the second time. And it repeated. After crossing 3 barriers, Shiryen had consumed almost all of his essence qi. He had to supplement his qi using the crystal. His face was pale. Yi-xiong and Ju-yi were excited, giving him some jade bottles with smiling expressions. You should eat these pellets. They will restore your essence qi faster. Sweet aroma which could gladden the hearts diffused from the jade bottles. Shiryen sniffed, and he was struck. They were all good things. Shiryen smiled and didn't pretend to be polite. He took the jade bottles and swallowed the pellets, which had abundant spiritual qi, using the power of the medicine to restore his essence qi. As Yi-xiong and Ju-yi were the elders of the Spirit Treasure Sect, the pellets they had of course were not ordinary. After taking in 10 pellets, the essence qi in his body started to surge like a tide. The exhausted energy in his body was being recovered quickly. 3 minutes later, Shiryen exhaled freshly. He laughed and said, "Move." After crossing 12 ancient barriers, Shiryen's essence qi had been drained by a big part again. He had to use pellets to restore it the second time. However, Yi-xiong suddenly shot up. He squinted, coldly looking forward. Under a chaotic space of electric currents intertwining, a group of people was crouching in a corner, not daring to act recklessly. They seemed to be waiting for something. Above their heads were thunder, lightning, and the whole sea of fire. Sometimes, they could see some strange intent domains flash up. Afterward, the whole space had an earth-shaking change. Powers of the 5 elements including metal, wood, water, fire, and earth showed up gradually, creating massive, dreadful formations. This group seemed to be besieged. They were worried and distressed, looking at a young maid. The girl had her eyes close. As everybody else regarded her as a core, she was sensing something silently. Her brows slammed together, as if she had a big challenge, unable to break this barrier that quick. "Look, it's them!" Yi Xiong shouted. Everybody followed Yi Xiang's line of sight, watching that group of people crouching under that thunder and lightning coverage. "We come with you this time, but we made it clear that we will help you deal with the Heaven Thunder Beast only," Yuing said softly. "But now, I don't think so. I think we should talk." Yi Xiong turned around, talking with a dark face. "No need to talk, I know what you want to say. This time we have come to the ancient cave mansion, so we will share all the items we got there." Yu Ying's eyes brightened. She nodded, "Good then." Yun Xiu also smiled and nodded silently, as she was satisfied with Yi Xiong's answer. As they had known about the existence of the ancient cave mansion and the world-extinguishing thunder flame, they didn't want the benefits Yi Xiong had promised them before. As they saw the hotshots from the Martial Spirit Palace and the Heaven Temple earlier than expected, it meant the next part of their trip would involve a conflict or even a battle with the others. Only for the benefit Yi Xiong had promised them, Yu Ying and Yun Xiu would just back off and never sell their lives in such a situation. However, the ancient cave mansion and the world-extinguishing thunder flame were enough for their motivation. Birds died because of food, and people died because of money. If the enticement were big enough, they could even risk their lives. That group seemed unable to see them. They were staying and watching here and there in the prohibited area, not daring to move. They didn't realize the existence of another group. Yi Xiong was nonchalant. He kept smiling faintly, but he felt lucky in his heart. They were lucky that they had Shiryan accompanying them this time. Otherwise, they would have never gotten to this place, and they would never have seen the ancient cave mansion or the world-extinguishing thunder flame. Shiryan's outstanding performance had turned perils into nothing scary, as he could pierce through barriers one by one easily. This was beyond their imagination. Yi Xiong couldn't help but look at Shiryan, who was closing his eyes and adjusting his breathing. Yi Xiong's eyes were complicated, as he had more calculations in his head. A long time afterward, Shiryan woke up, smiled, and said, "We shall move." Everybody was excited. The group from Martial Spirit Palace was still besieged. They hadn't found the solution yet. Shiryan took out the sky-breaking shuttle, pouring energy into it and creating the light tunnel. He hopped in. Yi Xiong and Jui were smiling as they felt delighted, walking on the light road. While walking into the light tunnel, they could see the Martial Spirit Palace's group, but the others couldn't see them. This group was still frowning miserably, waiting in fear. Inside the tunnel, everybody felt that they were more superior than the others. The victory of striking the opponent after their opponent had struck them made them felt good. Are they the opponents we're about to meet? Shiryan was a bit surprised. He quietly assessed this group, and his face changed. This group had 12 members. 7 of them were at the spirit realm, 3 were at the third sky, 2 were at the second sky, and the other 2 were at the first sky. Obviously, this force was stronger than theirs. "Yeah," Yi Xiong's face was solemn. "Well, we'll encounter them anyway, so I should give them a big gift." Shiryan grinned fiendishly, as cold as a sharp saber. Chapter 572, Sky Destroyer. Chapter 572, Sky Destroyer. An ecliptic crossed the barrier through the dark place. Inside that ecliptic, Shiryan wore a malicious face. Trace of cold thoughts flashed in his pupils. "What do you want?" Yi Xiong was worried. It was different now, since they were in the middle of the prohibited area. If he took action here, the barrier would restrain him a lot. In the worst case, the barrier could hurt him badly. "You want to attack them from here?" Zhu Yi shook his head disapprovingly. "Not good, eh? Once you cause a change in the ancient formation, it can affect us too. As long as we won't leave this light tunnel, we're safe. But if you leave this place to attack them, I'm not sure about anything." Yu Ying and Yun Xiu also frowned and shook their heads as they thought that Shiryan's decision was risky. "Who said I wanted to attack them inside the barrier?" Shiryan rose his eyebrows. He didn't talk more, took a deep breath, and then summoned the giant mysterious sword in the blood vein ring. After he entered the spirit realm, he hadn't had a chance to use the giant mysterious sword. As his mind flickered, the giant sword turned into a beam of black light falling into his hand. His soul consciousness winded around the giant mysterious sword like a rope as a feeling of blood connection swelled in his heart. Shurian's eyes sparkled like the diamond. Sky Destroyer. A flow of thought shot out from the giant mysterious sword, entering his sea of consciousness. The sword was called Sky Destroyer. Finally, he got to know the name of the divine sword he had, Sky Destroyer. The sword spirit from the giant mysterious sword proactively sent him a thought to tell him its name. It was the first time the sword had cooperated well with him. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The Sky Destroyer hooted loudly. A flow of destructive aura exuded from the tip of the sword, which was like spiritual snakes, extending to all directions from Shurian as the core. Crack, crack, crack. The energy wall of the tunnel echoed the clear sounds from the impact. Dazzling sparks shot out unceasingly. Shurian was frightened. He focused, using his soul consciousness to reduce the aura of the Sky Destroyer. A destructive energy in the form of a tornado gathered at the tip of the Sky Destroyer, as red eyes opened one by one on the sword tip. Thick smell of blood quietly permeated the area, which nauseated people, boiling up their blood, generating a helpless feeling of not being able to control their emotions. Shurian's eyes sparkled. His soul consciousness was moving like tentacles, stimulating the Sky Destroyer. He was using the soul consciousness to connect with the sword. Flows of Shurian's soul consciousness were moving rapidly inside the Sky Destroyer, bring his own aura into each corner of the sword body. Inside the sword, jade-like crystals crossed and intertwined with each other, like vessels in the human body. There was blood flowing in those crystals, thick blood with stinky, pungent smell, containing a murderous aura that shot up into the sky. The blood was robust, but it was also evil and eccentric. While his soul consciousness moved around the sword, fright swelled in Shurian's heart. He was about to burst out. The complexity of this Sky Destroyer could be compared to human body structure, which was beyond his knowledge. Normally, treasures were made of refined materials and formations to gather the energy of heaven and earth. Obviously, the method to forge this Sky Destroyer wasn't similar to the regular methods to refine weapons that he knew. It was extremely mysterious and strange. It seemed right when the beginning, the one who forged the Sky Destroyer had considered it a living being and had treated it so. That person had used some strange secret techniques that used so many jade-like crystals to form the system like the meridians of human warriors. Those crystals even kept fresh blood. That thick blood contained a vigorous vitality that gave people a hallucination of its strong life force. The divine sword Sky Destroyer was like a warrior's body with vessels, blood, and living fluctuations. Was it a real secret treasure? It was a living being. What stunned Shurian was still behind. His soul consciousness took a tour around the Sky Destroyer and found a misty area that was as thick as snow. Soul energy fluctuations surged from that mist. That soul energy formed a sea, which was similar to his sea of consciousness. And it was obvious that a soul was living in there, using that soul sea to control the meridians and blood of the sword. This was like a human brain. Shurian gawked, dropping his jaw. Swoosh! A blood-red light shot out from the soul sea and condensed a blood flower in front of Shurian's soul consciousness. A thought bloomed out silently. New master. Finally, you've reached the spirit realm. From now on, your soul consciousness is able to control me. Who are you? I am Sky Destroyer. Sword Spirit. You can say so. Who was the previous master of the Sky Destroyer? I'm damaged badly, so I don't remember the previous events. But I know my previous master was many times much stronger than you now. He seemed to have vanished completely. But I can sense a beam of his aura on you. In the future, you have to investigate it on your own. I have no way to help you. So, what can you help me? Kill enemies. Kill enemies? How do I control you? Fuse your soul consciousness with me. When I know your thought, my tip will bloom together. The stronger your power is, the sharper I can be. Shurian was holding the Sky Destroyer, standing in the light tunnel. A thick blood scent diffused from the sword in his hand. In that dense murderous aura, blood-red eyes on Sky Destroyer opened silently, brutal, evil, and bloodthirsty. Yi Xiong, Zhu Yiying, and Yun Xiu were terrified. They furrowed their brows, looking at the sky destroyer in Shurian's hand. A ruthless aura soared up to the sky, and it wasn't formed naturally. This evil weapon had drunk an immense blood of many warriors to create such a brutal aura. Under that murderous aura of the evil weapon, even warriors with a strong will like Yi Xiong and the other three were subdued. Their breathing sped up as a murderous desire emitted from the bottom of their hearts. Yi Xiong and the others quickly pulled themselves together, adjusting their breathing and strengthening their minds. The four exchanged looks and could see the fright in the others' eyes. Shurian's mysteries aroused more curiosity in them. Juniors like Lin Ji, Li Muyu, and Bai Huiquan stayed away from him. They were holding their chests, panting heavily. The murderous aura on the Sky Destroyer was the poison that could erode the soul and spirit. The juniors' realms weren't high enough. Under the effect of such an aura, they seemed to be about to burst out crazy. Strong malignant aura. The juniors had their souls hurt. Their faces changed dramatically as they were screaming. Suddenly, the dull expression on Shurian's face vanished. He grinned, then talked to Yi Xiong and the others. The eye of this ancient formation's the power of the 5 elements. Look at that special crystal. That's the eye of this formation. Everybody looked at the direction he pointed. Indeed, they could see a 5-colored crystal stone on the unpredictable ecliptic, made by the combination of other 5 strange, different colored crystals. Fluctuations of the 5 elements were constantly moving in there. Changes of heaven and earth around were reflected vaguely in the stone. The blacksmith's secret of success had some descriptions of ancient formations. The blacksmith who wrote the book had good knowledge of ancient formations and barriers too. Teleportation formation was a marvelous formation. Shurian's soul consciousness had spent a lot of time in the blacksmith's secrets of success. Although he couldn't become a formation master, he still had some solid knowledge. True. It's the eye of the formation. What do you want to do? Yi Xiong muttered as he felt a bit anxious. Destroy it. He raised the Sky Destroyer. The sword slipped away from his hand, turning into a blood beam and slashing down robustly. The Sky Destroyer was really sharp. After it had received Shurian's power, it was incomparably rigid. The formation eye that was made from the 5 elements crystals was crushed into scattering pieces of stone. Instantly, the ancient formation was like an enraged beast that started to bare its fangs and claws. Yi Xiong was frightened. You destroyed it? You destroyed it. He did the right thing, Zhu Yi exclaimed. When the formation eye is destroyed, the ancient formation will be weakened. However, even if the formation master could solve it, he has no way to break it now. Even if this ancient formation got its eye broken, its power won't reduce. People from Martial Spirit Palace and Heaven Temple should pay a bloody price. Yi Xiong's eyes lit up. It was true. The Martial Spirit Palace had a Mo Ling, the one who was good at breaking ancient formations. Currently, her process should be at the final stage. To a team with a formation master, it was just a matter of time to break the formations. But what if the ancient formation was obliterated? That formation master would lose his function in the team. Warriors stuck in there had only one solution, which was to use force to get out. The power of this old formation wasn't ordinary. After the formation eye was destroyed, even if it couldn't put forth the whole power, it was enough to make the ones trapped inside pay a terrible price. Let's go. I think they will have a headache for a while. Shurian smiled until his eyes narrowed. Then, he strode towards the other end of the light tunnel. Everybody followed him immediately. Damn it. Inside the barrier, Mo Ling shivered as dark blood trickled from her mouth. Clouds of fire were drifting above their heads while thunder and lightning were crossing. Many types of powers disordered, like dynamite exploding rumblingly. The barrier was wrecked. Mo Ling's eyes were as cold as ice, her heart bitter. She just needed half a day more to break this damn formation and take people out of it safely. Who? Mo Ling's eyes twinkled as she was searching in the ruined formation. She saw a dazzling silver light zooming out rapidly. What? This barrier seems to have disordered completely. Not good. It comes. Our location isn't safe now. No place is safe now. Mo Ling gritted her teeth, speaking up coldly. Someone has destroyed the formation eye. which destroyed this formation too. We can't break it anymore. Now, we can only barge out with our force. Or else, the barrier will keep us forever. Everybody was frightened and enraged. Who did that? Dares to trap us. If I get to know who he is, I will destroy both his soul and body. We need to figure the way out first. Air sighed. We need to seize the time. If not, when the hidden peril of the formation stirred up, it will be much tougher. We will bear a big loss this time. You guys should be prepared. Members of this group put on a cloudy expression as they hated the one who had destroyed the formation eye to their marrow. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.